All systems nominal.
それでは早速全速前進
You don't know what the weak point of a mech is? The fucking pilot.
Get away from her, you bitch!
His papers say he was a raven.
Protocol 3.
A pattern blue!
Welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants, a giant robot power hour discussing mechs across media, their stories, and why we love them. I'm Alice, and I'm joined by Brian.
Hey guys, I'm going to have a little bit of a low energy today. I just got rejected for a position on a spaceship because I don't have purple hair, so.
And certified poster and author of Cosmic Warlord Kinbright, we are joined by guest Thaliarchus.
I'm forming a crack team of fools to experiment with organic bozo jumping.
And this time around, we're discussing I'm not a dashing man of action. I'm a cute, adorable woman.
Yeah.
Martian Successor Nadesico. Let's launch into it. It had to be that line.
It had to be that line.
It had to be
I gotta
that
say,
line.
I know this was Nico's, so Nico's not here. Nico has COVID.
Dun dun dun.
And that sucks. So she can't be here today. And this was supposed to be, this is Nico's show. If you're a longtime OSG listener, this is like the show that Nico's seen. However, I feel like watching this, I learned more about Alice because Eureka is every Alice TTRPG character ever crystallized into a solid shape.
You'll never guess my thoughts on Eureka and that character. But luckily, we already had this planned, but guest and friend of the pod, Thaliarchus, I had reached out because listeners might know, Thaliarchus has been on the pod both as an interviewee for Cosmic Warlord Kinbright and a guest on our G-Quux episodes, but has never been on what I like to call the original timeline. We have not had a UC episode. So we boson jumped Thaliarchus in, and Thaliarchus, when I talked to you about like, hey, we want to do a mainline episode, I haven't chosen something to do this year because I like to keep a slot empty because I like to give Brian anxiety. And I was like, pitch me what excites you about Mecha. And you gave us 3, and one we were already covering, which was Giant Robo. Because that was a big miss, and you were like, "These idiots need to know what's good."
I was just glad to hear you were doing it. I mean,
yes, like
so
yes,
someone needs to talk about it. Yes, carry on. Sorry.
And then there was one other.
The one you suggested that we aren't doing is Shimoon, which I mean, are the Shimoon in Shimoon even giant robots? Question mark.
I mean, in any podcast, we'd be the ones to argue that they are. That's what I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
You brought this one up, and when you mentioned it, it had to be it. Because, spoiler, I like Nadesico, right? I like it a lot. And I also feel like in modern mecha, not enough people know this as a cornerstone as much as they know Eva. Which I think is kind of sad, because I like it better than Eva. Anyway, let's talk about it. So this was produced in 1996 by Zebek. It is 26 episodes, kind of split into a perfect 13 and 13, but it just rolls through. They just end one season with the Christmas episode and the other with the series ending that they were begrudgingly having. The director was Tetsuya Sato, who is known for Gakuen, Senki Miura, which is a mecha, Tokyo Tribe 2, Tasuketsu, Adam the Beginning, the anime, Ucho no Stelvia, which is also a mecha, and one of my favorites, Bodacious Space Pirates, which is heavily inspired by Nadesico.
And several of those others are interesting. I think Stelvia is a curious and interesting watch. And Shingu, Gakuen Senki Murya, I can't remember the full Japanese title. Mm-hmm. Shingu is interesting. And here's a bit of random, very nerdy trivia for you. But before Nadesico, which I think may have been his first major directorial job, he was I think an assistant director on Tobe Isami, which is a very, very likable, family-friendly sort of adventure show. I think it was aired on NHK. and I think about 3 episodes be translated. It's lots of characterful animation, really fun premise, and badly in need of a full English translation.
So the writer for this was Sho Aikawa, known for Shippu, Iron Leaguer, Neo Ranga, Love Hina, the Hero War Chronicles, which was an original concept between him and Studio Bones, the 2003 Full Metal Alchemist, Corpse Princess,
Let's go.
and 16 episodes of Eureka 7.
Wrapping it.
His most recent writing credits were for Card Fight Vanguard, which is a nothing show. Also, sorry, I have COVID. Shu wrote the theme song lyrics for the most banging OP of a mecha. Hell yeah. We'll get into the music. It's so good. And then one of the other ones, I always like to talk on these ones, especially of the mechanical design. Because as we've talked more and more on this show, we realize that there was just like a cabal of these guys in Japan pioneering everything mecha design, and they've all kind of worked together. So there's a bunch of sub-designers on this, there's a bunch of sub-writers, there's a bunch of names around this project, but the mechanical design was Mika Akitaka. Cut his teeth with the galaxy-crawling Yuna series. He worked on Sakura Taisen, Gundam 0083, ZZ Gundam, Char's Counterattack, Strike the Blood, Data Live, and for the podcast, 0080 War in the Pocket. So, not to say that I love everything this man does, but he's right in my wheelhouse.
It's interesting. He's done a bunch of stuff. The only, I guess that's it. Like,
just a ton.
You don't just design, that's crazy.
But not just mecha, like he does mechanical design. Strike the Blood is what I like to point to. It has some robots in it, but basically all of his design was cool weapons, which I'm just a fan of. I love a cool sword that slightly changes, you know? So, is this a part of a franchise? Yes! Asterisk. It's an interesting one. So, Nadesico was originally going to become what we would call a multimedia franchise. It released in 1996. In 1997, they released a game for the Sega Saturn called Mobile Battleship Nadesico, which is a dating game. It's an otome game. You gotta date the girls on the ship. It's exactly what you think it is.
I think an otome game is when you date men. From memory. Sorry to be pedantic.
Gal game?
You are.
It would be
that
a gal
might be
game,
closer,
then.
but I mean, I think dating sim might be safe. I'm not sure, because some people like to restrict dating sim to things with stats and a Tokimeki Memorial style weak mechanics. So let's not get into the weeds. But it was a romance focused game with limited mecha content.
Very limited. The mechs exist. In 1998, we got a second game on the Sega Saturn, Martian Successor Nadesico, The Blank of 3 Years, which is what I would call a kinetic novel, which just tells the stories immediately following what happened in the series. Okay. This then led to the movie in 1998, Martian Successor Nadesico, The Prince of Darkness, which is the direct sequel to the series that comes right after The Prince of Darkness. That movie doesn't exist to me. Cool story. I just don't acknowledge it. What are your thoughts on that, Thal? I kind of want to touch on this.
Yeah, I think the version of the Prince of Darkness in Super Robot Wars V is pretty good.
True. Yeah.
So the film, I'm sure it has its defenders, but I think people who like the TV show are often not super into the film. It has suffered internationally because I believe parts of its plot piggyback onto the second Sega Saturn game, and of course when the TV series was brought out in English in various countries, and I'm sure in other languages, maybe even before the Anglosphere, I don't know. And then the film was brought out, but of course people didn't have the Sega Saturn game that its plot hooks onto, so that didn't help. I've read the script of the Sega Saturn game. It was a very long time ago, but I did read the whole thing. I remember doing it, and it didn't make the film work that much better. So I don't think the only problem is that it piggybacks on this thing. We can maybe get into later some of the things that maybe changed, that make the film kind of different in different ways. But like Gundam Seed Destiny, it is one of those mecha properties which have several times been significantly improved in Super Robot Wars. So, there's good in everything, and thank goodness for Super Robot Wars. Is, I think, broadly my take on the film.
Truly. So after this, there was another game in 99, Martian Successor Nadesico: The Mission, which continued the story after the Prince of Darkness, kind of overlapped a little with the movie, from what I've read of the story. And then there was a Mahjong variant game for the Game Boy Color, Martian Successor Nadesico Ruri Ruri Mahjong. Probably the greatest in the series, I'm sure. From what I've seen, it's a Mahjong game.
That kind of makes sense because the Nadesico, it gets very little screen time, but the Nadesico has a mahjong room that people play mahjong in.
Yes.
Established.
Yes.
And Ruri plays computer games. There are a couple of scenes where you can see she's playing different kinds of games in the background.
She's just vibing. It's so good. And then something very important to the Nadesico and keeping it kind of in the conversation. It has appeared and its pilots and mechs in a lot of the Super Robot War games, as well as Another Century, the now defunct variant of Super Robot Wars. But it has shown up a lot, including even the bad mechs from Nadesico.
So I'm playing Super Robot Wars W at the moment, and indeed I'm streaming it on Twitch, same username. Don't subscribe because it's not.
Thaliarchus.
Yeah, don't subscribe. It's not monetized, but you can follow me. And that has, I think, both Nadesico and the film in it. I've played before several other Super Robot Wars games. I think J and V, and possibly one or two others which have the show. Somehow it fits into Super Robot Wars really well. Possibly partly because, of course, the Nadesico is very engaged in thinking about robot anime as an idea.
Yes, I think I've caught a couple of those streams. A, they're really good. B, I think the new Super Robot Wars games haven't grabbed me because I really don't love the polished aesthetic of those. But the one that you're playing looks so good to me.
Yeah,
like, just like literally aesthetically looks so good. I'm obsessed with it.
The GBA and Nintendo DS Super Robot Wars have some really beautiful art, and because they don't have voice acting, all they have to do to include lots of characters and locations and so forth is a little bit of art and portraits. Mm-hmm. So they're actually, they're very low resources in some sense, but that lets them be very adventurous. So they're very interesting objects, I think.
So it's worth mentioning, there is a manga series that is loosely based on the anime with a slightly altered new story and written specifically for mature audiences. Infer from this what you will. And lastly, we can't forget the Genki Gengar 3 OVA, which is a compilation OVA of extended bits from the in-universe show. Yes, you can watch an episode of this fake anime. There is one. It's great.
Well,
that's really good.
Possibly there are two, because the recap episode in Nadesico is an episode of Genki Gengar 3 as well. We should mention.
We do have to. What a great show. So let's go around the horn. What did y'all know about this before we covered it? We'll start with you, Thaliarchus, because I think we're in the same boat.
So this is not quite the first anime I saw, but Nadesico is the anime that made me interested in anime. So I grew up in a house with no television and didn't really watch things except occasionally in the cinema until in my teens we got hold of a computer with a DVD drive, and which meant I could rent DVDs from like a local video rental shop. So I was renting my way through a bunch of films, old and new, and I rented a few anime. And one of the ones I rented was would have been the first back then. Anime was, of course, released in sort of like 3 episodes on a disc or something. The amount you paid per episode was ridiculous. So I would have rented the first volume of Nadesico and watched the rest of it and was sort of very struck by it. And the other things I'd seen were good and interesting. Ghost in the Shell 1995 is not a bad film. But the Martian Successor Nadesico was the first thing I watched where I thought, I'm not sure I could have seen something like this elsewhere. Like I've not encountered this particular combination of, very, very silly and very serious, and sort of self-reflective or reflexive perhaps, material, in very accessible entertainment. elsewhere. So yes, for me, it's not quite a favorite. I do like it very much. And, it will always be a title that I owe quite a lot, because without it, I would probably be, a slightly different in character now. Now
Right.
I've spent several decades watching anime. So yeah, that's my experience with the show.
Nice. Brian, what about you? What was your experience with Nadesico?
I totally missed this one. This feels like something that I would have watched and really liked, I feel like, but I had never even heard about it until Nico talked about it as something that was foundational to her. Like this, I think, Tal, you have basically the same experience as Nico, because she's not here, I'll summarize for her, because we've known each other for a decade and it's ridiculous, but she basically experienced anime through her dad, like me. And he would bring around these either often legit, and also equally often pirated disc swap DVDs that are just loaded with anime. That was how she kind of branched out, because you would get those and they would have weird fan commercials for other anime in them. And so that was basically how she got into it. And Nadesico was one of those. It's interesting to hear people watch this show and not know all of the things that it is so lovingly playing with. I think that's an interesting experience. But yeah, this was my first time watching it. I didn't want this to be over. I really liked this show. It was so good.
My experience is, I watched this pretty young, not in the what many in my assigned age bracket would call the Toonami era in America, where we all learned anime because Toonami existed. Thank you,
we all
Toonami.
learned. I have our degrees in anime because we went to Toonami U.
But this was one of those ones where I had to borrow a DVD from somebody to watch because anime was hard to get. And I was hooked. It was the right amount of hell yeah, giant robots. But I had watched so much Mobile Suit Gundam at that point that it was this was a natural progression for me of what if that, but not depressing all the time? What if it was fun? One thing I do want to note is to speak to the Toonami era of it all. This came out a year after Evangelion came out.
Yes.
Which is, you'll never guess, this dogs a lot on what they did in EVA, very specifically and intentionally. The thing is there were only so many voice actors at the time. The English voice actors for Shinji Ikari and our main character Akito are the same. And he is playing one character in both. So I had a weird relationship with this.
Yeah. I don't know if you're saying the voice actor is playing the same character?
Yeah, he sounds exactly like in some scenes he's very giving Shinji Ikari. I'd have to do a side-by-side, but during some of the episodes where he's evoking the Shinji Ikari meltdowns, it's just Shinji Ikari.
I'm glad I watched this in Japanese then, honestly, because I felt that Akito is giving, until you said, I mean, there is obviously a lot of Evangelion in this, don't get me wrong, but I would not have drawn any lines really between. I feel like Akito is kind of an opposite to Shinji in a lot of ways.
Well, we'll get into it about his character, because some might argue he's every character ever. And
right. Well, sure. He's either every character ever or none of the characters ever.
Yep.
I think also I think it would be foolish to suggest that there isn't some impact from Evangelion in Nadesico. I think you're right that it is, and they are a year apart, so the end of the TV series Evangelion is 6 months before Nadesico begins, and Nadesico is an original project, so it takes a while to spool up. So there are elements in Nadesico which will have been set in stone before Evangelion aired.
Yeah.
And also its relationship to Evangelion will be a bit like how there are robot shows which are made in the first few years after 1979 when people are aware of the original Gundam, but it's not yet become this kind of landscape bestriding commercial titan.
This land battleship.
Yeah.
Of
So
IP.
when
Nice.
when Nadesico started airing, people who were into anime would have been aware of Evangelion, But it wasn't the kind of pop cultural touchstone that it's become now. So one has to think oneself back into that kind of double mindset, not knowing about it, but sort of being aware of it as something that wrapped up, last spring, which is like a very different kind of attitude. It's something that's not really canonical because it's so recent.
Especially because this was in the era of production where they planned these things so far in advance. Modern anime production is so quarter to quarter. Like, it's more easy to conceive that because in modern era, they're literally creating it right before it airs, episode by episode. It makes you feel bad. It's painful. Yeah.
It makes you feel, because like,
is bad.
That was exactly what I was going to say, is like, you see that they're already coming out with another Jujutsu Kaisen movie, and it's like, have these people gone home? Have these people ever gone home?
And there is a joke about this in Nadesico, if I remember rightly, because I think in the recap
here's
episode,
where the writers, where the artists are, and they're dead.
The next episode preview before the recap episode, I think. It's something like it's written as though they're in the studio or something, and they're like, isn't that guy sleeping under his desk? Or so it's kind of straightforwardly, like, kind of honest about like why the recap episode is there.
There's also a next episode preview where they have, I don't know if it's really him, I have to assume it is, but they have the director come on, and he sounds absolutely miserable and bedraggled. It's really funny.
Yeah. and that's that's an anime production. There's never been a cakewalk, and that was the 1990s of things. From the people who really understand these things, and you shouldn't take it from us. You should go and read places like Sakuga Blog, where people are really studying these companies. But everything suggests that things are worse now than they were in the 90s. Right. So it is from a different time, and we should perhaps, just to keep setting the scene, if it's okay to just say a couple of things about this. Is something that aired at I think 6:30 in the evening. It certainly aired in the evening, the early evening. So this is not a late night show. And it's also not an early, like a 8 a.m. in the morning, like Saturday morning cartoon. So Gurren Lagann is like a late example that it doesn't happen so often now, but it's a late example of a robot show that aired in the morning on a weekend. Nadesico aired in the early evening on Tuesdays, and it therefore had a relatively general audience, though it definitely has, some of the gags here are for freaks and maniacs.
Right.
But you have to,
some
you
of the
have
gags,
to know.
Yeah. When it finished airing, the thing that started airing in the time slot the next week was Pokemon. So it's this is not like a late night show in quite the way that, we've talked about this with G-Quacks, like what the niche of late night anime is. But it is at the turning point, because in the same season, in autumn of 1996, when Nadesico started airing, was also when Those Who Hunt Elves aired late at night.
Oh, and that I did watch. Okay.
Yeah. And that's one of the, it's not the earliest, but it's one of the first fruits of the beginning of the opening up of the late night time slot as a commercial option for anime. So Nadesico actually airs at this really interesting pivot point where this kind of anime in future will be moving towards the kind of late night, much more fanish, much more nerdy. Everyone here has seen everything that's being referenced kind of time slot, but Nadesico itself airs in a time slot for relatively general audiences, which I think possibly helps to explain why you can watch it as more or less your first robot show.
Yes.
And, you won't catch all the references, but there'll still be things in there for you. Whereas I think if it had aired at 2 a.m, it would probably be completely impenetrable
Right.
So just to kind of characterize where Nadesico is in the broadcast schedule, I think that captures something about its place in anime history.
In Japan, where you slot your anime. Like, we take for granted the fact that as Westerners consuming this, we have never, like, Toonami holds a place in people's heart because it was a time when anime would just be airing and you would tune in. And by the time anime became pervasive in our cultures, we had streaming services. Like, anime on demand has been always available to us, whereas over there, like, it's an event. Like, I think we're kind of coming back to it because Crunchyroll, we hate them, has started doing, like, we are translating it and dropping it right after airing. So you can watch this as if you are a person in Japan who saw it right after airing.
And you can stream anime online in Japan. I mean, it's the broadcast slot is still important, but it's not as important as it used to be.
I was going to write a synopsis for this, but I realized as I was on about paragraph 8 that was not going to happen. So I'm just going to read the synopsis from my anime list, which undersells the hell out of it.
Okay.
Akito doesn't want to fight. Despite a childhood spent on the anime Geki Gengar 3, a mecha show, he'd rather cook than pilot a mecha. Fate intervenes when his home on Mars is destroyed, and he is transported instantly to the Earth, mysteriously. He has questions no one can answer fully, but follows a girl from a chance meeting in hopes to discover any. The girl, Eureka, is captain of the private battleship Nadesico, and in order to follow her, he enlists as their cook. Possessing the nanite implants that allow him to control mechas, he's a handy backup pilot for the mechas of the Nadesico. He joins a crew bent on avenging Mars that seems to be composed of only misfits, otakus, and ditzes. However, in reality, they are hand-picked experts. They take their own private war back to Mars to face the harsh reality that life may not always be like a giant mecha series. And with that, we'll head to the break.
Hi guys, it's your best friend and the person who cares about you most in the world, so you should probably burn every relationship that isn't with a member of this podcast, Brian. Got some announcements and reminders here for you all. First, as always, this is a podcast where we're talking about a lot of visual subject matter, so Alice spends a bunch of time every episode putting a bunch of pics up on the website at osgpod.com. Second, OSG has a Twitch at twitch.tv/OSG_pod. I stream every Sunday for the rest of the year. In the shell, I'll be doing Cyberpunk games. Third, OSG has a Ko-Fi. That's ko-fi.com/OSGpod. Literally nothing in this shit world costs $1 anymore, so you should give us your loose ones because we can do stuff like make ourselves sound better and do more extracurriculars with it. Also, we do give you a memorial hard stance every time you support us. I have one more thing to talk about, and then I'll release you, but you have to pay extra special attention here because it's really important and cool. We are about to enter a month of Big O coverage, and serendipitously, I also joined the Giant Robot FM zine team just as they announced their 5th zine on Big O2. Steven over at GRFM has graciously decided to extend an offer to OSG listeners only. Normally, you would have to be a patron at their $10 a month tier to receive a zine or pay $30 on their Ko-Fi shop. But you, listening to this right now, can get both their first zine on Big O Season 1 and the new zine that I did design and layout for $20. $20. I am wretched at math, but that is some percentage off of both of them, a kind of crazy percentage. So, yeah. So this is going to run from October 1st to October 31st, 2025 only for you all. And to make it work, you just head over to their Ko-Fi shop at ko-fi.com/giantrobotfm, all one word, and use the code OSGXGRFM, all one word, all caps. This is the only context OSG will ever advertise or partner with anything or anyone, so get them while they're hot. I promise you want the extreme multi-dimensional experience of listening to Big O coverage and reading these brilliant zines. Okay, again, OSGXGRFM at ko-fi.com/giantrobotfm. Do it now. Well, don't do it now. Do it starting the 1st. Okay, back to the show finally. You can tell me to shut up. I'm doing it. I'm shutting up right now. Right now, I'm shutting up. You can hear me shutting up right now.
What the synopsis didn't talk about is a lot of the Jovian plot and all of that. Like, we'll discuss it, but...
And is it, I don't want to hijack things, but is it okay if I feel like that synopsis tells you what happens as the beginning of the show, but if there's anyone listening who's not seen Nadesico, we're probably at some point going to get into fairly spoilery discussion, and you might, I'm guessing, you probably won't want to listen to the whole episode if you don't want to learn what happens without having seen the show. If you're just trying to get your head around it, it's essentially a space opera like Space Battleship Yamato. Yeah. It's set around a ship. It's about the crew of a ship. It has some romantic comedy elements, and it has an interesting combination of very, very comical stuff and a surprisingly sort of cynical. It's not dark, but it has a kind of cynical edge. It's not wholly cynical, but like it has a kind of hard-bitten edge to it, in terms of what's actually going on behind a lot of the jokes. That would be how I would describe it if someone asked me, to summarize it, but to explain what it is.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good pull. That just reminds me that, one of the things that this show does that kind of blows my mind is the tightrope it walks on tone. It's so masterful. It can get really dark and it can make you laugh really hard. Like the amount of times I actually laughed out loud watching this is incredible. It's so funny. And then it's also got a lot. It's also very reflective in a lot of ways.
at a breakneck speed. It also will make you cry. I cried at least once watching this rewatch. I cry once every time I watch this, and we all know the scene. So rather than kind of talk about this in a episode by episode, so usually on OSG when we talk about series, we're kind of going in broad strokes through the narrative. We're kind of going to talk about this stepped back, because unpacking Nadesico is like, yeah, it's a fun little show to watch, and I encourage everybody, like, there's some pretty good, I don't want to call them twists, because, like, were any of us really surprised at the twists as adults? No. But it was fun to watch them play out in a way that, like, I think experiencing it the first time, especially if you're a tenured mecha fan, would be fun rather than us talk about it.
The show commits to the twist as well. Just to, like, when a twist happens, it often takes it a bit further than you know, you might guess.
Well, and it also has kind of a double layer to it too, where it's like when you see your first Jovian, the thought that's going through your head, at least until they kind of give you the full scope of everything, is, are the Jovians actually just Geki Gengar? Like,
right, yeah.
And then you start, like, it does good at making you start to, like, come up with theories, and as you're doing that, it's like, and here's some slapstick comedy to remind you that we're just a silly little guy. So, part one of our discussion today, and what I think is what makes this show so important to me and Mecha, is the crew of the ND001 Nadesico. We're going to go through the crew, and we're going to talk about these characters because they have a lot of inspirations, and they have a lot of depth to them. So I just kind of want to talk through them and, like, what they go through in this series, because everybody's individual arcs in these stories are very fun. Where they intersect is where we get a lot of the juice. So we're going to start by order of appearance, sort of. I made this list after I watched it, so I forgot, but basically we meet everybody in the first episode. So our first character, our protagonist, our Shinji Ikari, Akito Tenkawa. Akito Tenkawa was on Mars, had some shit happen to him, ended up on Earth, decided to become a cook, suffers from PTSD from watching a bunch of people die, wants to know who kills his parents, has a girl who's deeply in love with him, and then a bunch of other girls who's deeply in love with him, and he's just trying to figure it all out. When we talk about mecha protagonists, this is the guy. He's hitting every trope a mecha protagonist can hit.
See, he's hitting those tropes because he's being thrown at them, though. And that's what makes it really fun. Like, one of the first things that happens with him that kind of makes you, like, be like, oh, this is what we're in for, is everyone knows the Gundam, a child is going to steal this Gundam, and the show will contrive itself into letting a child steal Gundam. Akito is propelled into having to take a mech at the behest of his superiors, even though he doesn't want to and isn't qualified. And that echoes throughout everything else that happens with him.
I think Akito, my overall take on the characters in Nadesico is that, how to put this is not a novelistic show, and expecting these characters to have fine-grained, in-depth kind of psychological realism is probably the wrong thing to ask out of Nadesico. And often the characters are most interesting in the way they relate to each other. So I think I don't especially relate to an idea of kind of Akito's interiority, but he functions well. Like the role that he has in the show, which exactly as Brian describes, is to be thrown into things, to be in situations. Few mecha protagonists have been in situations as hard as Akito Tenkawa. And that example you point to is a very good one. One of the key things about Akito is the way that he relates to Eureka, and one of the key things that puts him into the cockpit of the robot is a very well scripted scene in which Eureka continuously assumes that Akito has turned up to save her and is keen to help, and is going to sortie in the robot at risk of death because he's a dashing prince in knight in shining armor. And Akito is constantly screaming in the background over the comms going, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to die. Like that's a perfect exemplification, as you say, of both the way that, he is in general, he exists to be thrown into situations, and in particular, one of the things that really drives the show is the way that Eureka has this sort of kind of childish but very strong affection for him, which means that she doesn't pay very much attention. Well, neither of them pays very much attention to the other, but she doesn't pay very much attention to him, and he doesn't pay that much attention to her, which makes things quite difficult.
I think it's really interesting that Because when I remember Evangelion, and I hate to bring it back to that, people are like, oh, which girl is Shinji gonna get with? Shinji has no interest in that entire show in any of the women around him. And Tenkawa, same thing. These women are lining up and he's like, stop trying to assign a wife to me. I literally am dealing with some shit.
I mean, I think he has an interesting relationship with Megumi for a little while, but
I like their little side thing. I like that.
But for the most part, I think you're totally right.
I also, okay. Is Tenkawa actually a good pilot?
He seems to be able to pull things off under pressure.
We were on the subject of Yurika and Akito's like weird forced relationship that's funny. I just wanted to point out one very specific moment, which is absolutely a Gundam Wing joke, where Akito is arguing with her and he hits us with Koros, which like means I'll kill you. This is something that Hiro says to Relena in Gundam Wing very famously. And the way Yurika reacts by making it sound romantic and sexy, like she literally is like, oh my God, he's being romantic and sexy to me. It's just perfect. It's like, how do you make fun of everyone who is obsessed with the Hiro-Relena relationship in Gundam Wing in 0.1 seconds of an episode?
It's so good. Okay, we got to get to her. Your girl, Yurika Misamura. Best girl ever. So childhood friend from Mars, also a Martian. Hey, there are Martians here. Her character trait is she's the ditzy one. Like she's also the best battlefield tactician you've ever met. And it's just because she believes in her crew as her character trope. I just really love it. I love her as a character. So she got the job because her dad's rich and in the army.
Yes.
They hired her to pilot this ship because she's just like apparently really good at being a captain of a ship.
I think she graduates top of her class, if I remember rightly, or something like that. Her class in space military strategy. Yeah.
But the depth of her character is she isn't just in love with Akito. She is constantly reminding people that they're in deep love and were meant to be together, even though she forgot him entirely when they met. I don't know. I love her character. I love the energy she brings to the show, because I like to think of, okay, we can talk at it now because I'm going to talk about this going forward, because Akito is the audience allegory. Obviously, we've seen Mecha before, but I think all of the characters are allegories for different kinds of Mecha fans, as established in the episode where they're all watching Geiki Gengar and are like, oh, everyone loves this for different reasons.
You mean the one where they hold a con and they all cosplay as, you're 100% correct.
Hey, remember in the show they had a con for another anime to be like, hey, all different genders, races, and ideologies can love Mecha. So Yurika is I'm just here because I love the characters kind of person. Like, I love my character. I love my guy. I'm here for that. She has a reparative reading on everything. She's just happy. She's so hopeful. Her major power. She has a reparative reading on the world.
I think and this is true of a number of characters in the show. She could be described as an archetype. In that she's clumsy and in some ways very foolish, but she's extremely good at her job. I think what makes her a bit more than that and a bit more interesting than that is that the show devotes time to pointing out that she is extremely, like, there's a whole episode mostly devoted to her doing space captain tactical stuff, and also sort of plays on and jokes about like submarine movies and so forth. Episode 20. We're also consistently shown underestimating Yurika's actual ability in the ship captaining, understandably, because she's clearly she's clearly pretty disastrous most of the rest of the time, or at least like complex to deal with because of her profoundly sunny misinterpretation of everything. But if you watch the show carefully, not only is there that particular episode, but she's consistently very, very good at running the ship. There's an episode in which she becomes sort of down at heart because she looks up the history of spaceship captains and discovers that in the setting of Nadesico, now they appoint young charismatic captains because it's good for the crew's morale, which is possibly a play on like shifting trends in space opera. But then later, a few episodes later, she like uses that fact to make a point in another scene, and so there is a kind of intelligence going on in there. This is not this is not like a radically feminist show by any means, and the show is sometimes quite patronizing about Eureka, but she's also not an archetype. I think there is quite an interesting kind of tension going on with her through the show between what she can do and the way everyone else thinks about it. Apart from Fukube, the retired admiral, who immediately and just straightforwardly accepts that she's very good at what she does. Eureka is also voiced by Koeshima Hoko, who was not a big deal beforehand, but became a big deal immediately.
No, I was going to say, this is exactly what I wanted to talk about with Eureka too, which is, yes, her voice actress also sings the ending theme. That also folds into one of my favorite things about her character too, which is that like she is the main lever on which the show is going to lean on one of its biggest themes, which is like, don't let professional entanglements dilute like your personality. The being yourself aspect of it. Both the opening theme and the ending theme are about being yourself.
And the second to last episode takes it as its title as well.
Yes, exactly.
I also, so her position on the ship, I think, is really important to talk to in a mecha space. She's the captain. So when we think of captains in mecha, we gotta go with Bright. So I put her up against Bright from Gundam 0079 a lot. And there's many times where they are like, why is the captain going to go get Akito? And she's just like, cause I want to. And it's like, yeah, she's just being herself. But it's like, Bright would never go to get Amuro. Absolutely not. Gendo would never leave his chair. And they have an entire episode where it's like, hey, a bunch of people died and they all have different funeral rites because there's a million religions now. And you have to spend the whole episode dressing up and being the priest at each of these because actually,
yes,
the captain doesn't do much outside of combat.
And that is rather wonderfully that episode also links, like historically, that is the captain's function in the Royal Navy on ships with no chaplain.
Next, she is attributed as the ship's magical fairy, Ruri Hoshino. This is your Rei Ayanami. She is the little sister type. She is always just sitting in the cockpit talking to the computer. She's autistic, doesn't like masking. She has a torrid backstory that is played off in the quickest episode you've ever seen. And she's the ship's favorite because she's just the little ship mascot girl, basically. What do we think of Ruri, guys?
I like her. I feel like she doesn't really get to do much. When we first see her, there's an implication about her that she, and I mean, this is kind of true, where it's like I don't know, there's the way that the imagery around her and the way that she's introduced, like sitting in that weird chair, she kind of looks like a dweller from Cyberpunk. Like I kind of thought she was like an android or something, and she has a very robotic personality.
That's what I thought first. I was definitely android coded.
And I like her. I like that she very clearly has an arc where she goes from being very deprecating about the people around her to being very deprecating in an intimate and gentle way to the people around her. She is cool. I like that she is a stand-in for interpreting the ship's personality, which the ship's AI has a name and appears to be able to communicate, but really only through Ruri, which I think is interesting and fun.
Unlike Rei in Evangelion, Ruri quietly uses relatively informal and slangy. She says things like Majide. She has it's kind of a quietly, how to put this, highly informal view of what's going on, which she doesn't often express to the rest of the crew beyond calling them idiots. And I think that's possibly, again, the thing that moves her away from being pure archetype is that sense that when you hear her narrating, there's a slightly different kind of version of her perspective.
Oh, yes.
Because she often does the narration at the beginning of an episode and so forth to catch people up. And that is, well, you can't imagine Rei doing that in Evangelion.
No.
She's also sets a tone. So I think of the time this was made was very much when the BBS era, it was very big for discussion on anime, and like real pervert conversations were happening online. She reads like a poster who's kind of dismissive about what's going on, but locked in. And throughout the series, she goes from, again, calling them baka idiots, like, the etymology of the word baka is a part of this show because of this character, which I love. but she goes from like looking at them as idiots and she's more ashamed of that fact that she's a part of this group and more comes to love it, which everybody on the ship becomes a Mecha fan is my thought on this in their own way. And she eventually becomes a fan of the rest of the crew. I just also love how they don't muddy the water with her. Like, she has a bad backstory, but she is just there. And like, they're not trying to be like, oh, and she's also into Aikido. No, she's mentions it herself. She's just a precocious child who's hanging out. I love that for her.
I think so one of the things that shifts and kind of takes Nadesico out of balance, I think, between the TV show and the film, is that it feels like the show expects Eureka to be the pin-up sort of mascot of the show. She gets the ending theme. The ending theme animation is entirely about her and so forth. But Ruri was the one who became really, really popular. And Ruri is the lead in the film and so forth. And there are a couple of scenes in the show where it's implied that Ruri has at least a kind of affection or maybe a kind of childish crush on Akito, I think. The show doesn't push this very much. There's a hint of kind of having its cake and trying to eat it too.
Right.
But to its credit, the show is not like pushing that idea. The film, I think, has a changed attitude to Ruri, and I think that's because it's become more something for maniacs. And less like a thing with that kind of balance between mania and the general audience.
We get to go to next, your boy, Yamada Jiro, or as we know him, Gai Daigoji.
The name of his soul.
The name of his soul. We accept people's preferred names here on OSG, and that includes if you want to be named after old mecha anime.
This is one of two guys in this show that are just straight up the protagonist of Getter, drawn in a different show. And they both are murdered, and it's very interesting.
I think Guy is a particular instantiation of what I was saying about this. The characters are mostly not really novelistic characters. I think Guy works really well. He doesn't have much going on inside, and his main function in the show is to inspire Akito to be very into Gekigangar 3 and then to be shot at the end of episode 3 in a pointedly unheroic way. And,
so good.
And he performs those functions really, really well. And I like him, but I don't think there's that much to say about like what goes on inside Guy's head. Very little goes on inside Guy's head, and that, he wouldn't work as well for his function for the show if we were given all this interiority and psyche for
which
this
I think
character.
is great. So he's the existing pilot of the Nadesico when our boy Akito joins, and then Akito has to launch because Guy is injured. And
Guy injures himself by attempting to do Gekigangar 3 moves in the Aestivalis.
So perfect. Guy exists to tell you, hey, you can like childish things and it's okay. That is Guy's part. He's also there to die so that Akito can spend the entire series trying to, address that.
So my theory, and of course this is going to be me with the goggles always on, but my theory is that Akito and Jiro are briefly in love. Akito never lets this go, first of all. And there's a very funny translation thing that happens later where Akito is painting a decal on a gunpla and it says gay. It says Gay. I was very shocked by Guy's death. I did not expect the show to go there.
Yeah.
Fuck Munetake lives forever. And yeah, I also did not let this go. I think this is another anime trope, right? There's always a character death at the beginning, or not always, but there's often a character death at the beginning that is going to inform behaviors and reactions to things much later on, right?
But I feel like it's usually either pretty immediate or alluded to being before the start, or we get like at least some time together. It really does feel like they had one combat and they weren't even really together. Like the bond is so minimal.
No.
Okay, going next. Our communications officer / Japanese voice actress, Megumi Reynard. Megumi is the comms officer. She was hired. So when they're putting together the team, A-team style, they call up Gorilla Man and they're like, you've got to put a team together. And he's like, I'm on it. And they just get everybody who excels in their field. So who do you get to be the comms officer? Obviously, one of the best voice actresses in Japan, which we later learned is a voice actress who works on little kid cartoons and hentai. One of the two. Megumi exists to be a more traditional Japanese beauty counterpart to Eureka, but not crazy. She is just
Eureka looks like a Yamato Nadesico. Eureka looks like a traditional Japanese beauty and doesn't behave like one. And Megumi Megumi definitely has spiky edges, but she is in some ways a more traditionally feminine seeming character. Although she looks more modern, and Eureka has the long dark hair and so forth.
No. Yeah, I think her story, she exists to be another romantic interest, but she is, unlike Eureka, who is very much like just declaring her love and it's just taken. Megumi is actively trying to romance Akito in a way that is like, this show interprets a lot about male and female relationships. We hear from our helmswoman, aren't we a ship of men and women? It's a very heteronormative kind of breakdown of this ship, but like, yeah, what puts this apart from like traditional Super Robot, right? Old Super Robot. Okay. Geki Gengar 3, kind of an allegory for Mazinger Z, right? That's the one that we have in our OSG canon that we can kind of like align to, but a bunch of other ones. Like it's really an amalgamation of it. But in those, there was like a central Japanese beauty character that was like the one people were chasing after.
So this is the Miss Nanako in Geki Gengar 3 represents the, or Getter Robo or Combattler V, Combattler V, or etc. Yes, yeah.
Yep, you get it. So
we can talk about Geki Gengar in a bit.
Yeah, we'll get to it. But I think it's really interesting in this where it's like they put her in here as this like more modern era or a Showa era woman who is like, she's actually going for it. She's willing to put in the effort, not be chased, but be the chaser.
The show doesn't get that much use out of Megumi once her relationship with Akito is over, but there is quite a good little subplot in 1 or 2 episodes about she goes back to her voice acting career.
Yes. I think those episodes cap off her story in a really fun way, and I think that stuff gives us some of the more interesting insights into what this show has to say about violence and state and state sanctioned violence and warfare. Because, you know, she goes back to her recording job, and the plot of her cutesy little magical girl anime has just become nonstop fighting because of the war. Right. I think that is so interesting. I think that we spend precisely the exact right amount of time on it. I think that episode is actually my favorite episode, the one where they all are split up and then they all kind of get back together.
And again, this is not subtle, and it's also not solving the problem. No. But there's a scene in which Nadesico points out that like a company, and in this case it's Nergal, is like the main sponsor for the show that Megumi is working for, and you know when they say jump, the company says how high. It's not. So it's also a moment. Is one of the relatively few anime. You know, especially this is not a show about making anime in the way that Animation Runner Kuromi or First Line or Shirobako is. There is a scene in this show where they're like, hey, yeah, this is commercial. This is commercial entertainment, and there are companies that control what's in it. And if you tell them something shouldn't be in it, they'll tell you to bugger off, if you'll excuse my French. I think she is used in interesting ways, but maybe not as much as she could be later in the show.
I just can't imagine a world in which corporations would tell artists what to do with their work, like especially right now in 2025. Can't imagine it. Anyway, next on our list, June, who got the greatest glow up in the show. From the show to the movie, he became an adult. A++. June is the I'm into Eureka character. He is fighting Akito for Eureka's love, but Eureka has already said, I'm not into you. We are friends. It starts with her being like, you are the best friend I've ever had.
Yep.
Bam. And then she's like, she never moves from that. And he's like, I'm fighting Akito for her love. Never. Akito's like, I do not care. Who are you? What is this? That's kind of what he exists to do. He's the XO of the ship.
He is party to some of my favorite moments in the show, though. The first one being in the 4th episode when he's piloting that fucked up Delphinium mech. He says, I could never be a hero because the military is only interested in fighting wars. And then when they force rescue him from the battlefield in that episode, they tell him that he can be who he wants. He just has to not like sell his bodily image to the fucking military that's going to use it to he's going to hurl him down a stream of boulders to, get their message across to the enemy or whatever. The other thing is he does the funniest gag in the whole fucking show, which is when he's doing the baseball sign language on the stretcher. And at first Inez is translating for him.
Yep.
And then she walks away, and then he has a whole bit about how nobody's translating for him now and he has to rely on the subtitles. I was like cry laughing through that. It was so funny.
It's a very good bit. Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on to a character I actually care about, Ryoko Subaru! So we're getting into the Aestivalis trio. So she is the lead, the tomboy pilot of the 3 Aestivalis pilots that we pick up out on the colony. Her trope is that she's not like the other girls. She's a tough rumble-tumble fighter. She's the best. Some might say the best pilot on the ship, actually, but, yeah. What do you guys think about her? I love her.
I love her too. I think the 3 of them are, in my notes, I call them the psycho pilots just because they're all extremely mentally ill in a different way.
I feel like we do have to talk to them together, so let's get the other 3. So we have, next one is Azumi Maki. Her character arc is, I have 2 dead fiancés and I say puns to deal with the trauma.
Unbelievable. She is so funny. I am obsessed with her.
So did you listen to do any of the switching of the audio to listen? They adapted her puns to English very well in the English stuff.
No, I didn't check that out.
They made an effort. It does not match with the Japanese at all, but it's very good. And then our last one, the idiot girl / otaku, Hikaru Amano. So they escape. One of them's in a crate. It's very good. They think Maki's dead.
Like Yurika, Hikaru, there's an episode where it's strongly suggested that Hikaru is quite intelligent in there somewhere. But she's obsessed with anime and so forth. You mentioned heteronormativity, and I think you're quite right. The show it's very, focused on men and women. And what I'm about to mention doesn't change this because it's a relatively minor and perhaps potentially belittling joke. But there is a member of the kitchen staff who refers to Ryoko as Ryoko Onesama. So it's not completely absent from the
I logged
the
in
show.
The moment that happened. I said, Yuri yearning confirmed. We have hit, because we have men yearning for men already in this mecha, and they just dropped that in, and I was like, perfect. We have just confirmed. Let's have fun with it. The 3 of them together play a very good purpose, which is they exist as the people to react to everything that's happening, and they'll just jump in what did Akito just say? What are we doing? What is that? Very fun.
They also just have great chemistry with each other. I love the ongoing subplot of the other 2 knowing that Ryuko has a crush on Akito, and making fun of her in public about it. It's all really good. Yeah, Thal, you had a hit skeet about the middle one here.
Oh, Izumi Maki would have loved posting. Yeah,
yes, she's a poster.
Yeah,
she's the poster of the show. 100%.
She has posters Bushido. Yeah.
Certified poster.
If you look at the amount of screen time they occupy, it's not that much. And I think what the show quite efficiently sketches, it conveys the idea that those 3 are busy doing stuff and piloting a lot, and we don't need to get that much from any individual one of them to kind of get a sense of that kind of continuous existence. As you say, they're often the peanut gallery to everything else that's happening. This is another aspect of Nadesico that's really good in Super Robot Wars. The 3 of them are often very good characters in Super Robot Wars. They're already very good personalities to bounce ideas off within the show, and you could just expand that to any other show that you're throwing into the mix. So, yeah.
And I think they're a good example of they're all idiots, but they are hyper competent at what they do. No time in the show do we ever question that these 3 in Aestivalis can just kill droves of Jovian fighters. They're
good, yeah.
Multiple times in the show, we are reminded that they're actually just really good at their job and being idiots talking to each other while they're just cleaning up. They're just this is nothing. War is whatever.
They're doing
really good.
Legolas and Gimli out there.
Yes. Which brings us to our next pilot. Let's talk about Minato Karuka, the helmswoman. She wears an outfit. She's the gal type, the very much like Gyaru type. She takes care of herself, very pretty. She used to be a secretary for a high-powered executive, and she left to join the Nadesico because it sounded fun. She has a relationship with our other character that we're going to get to, the gorilla. Gotori. But then they have kind of a falling out because of their job, and she finds new relationship. Like, she has full, like, she is modern woman dating in this in a way that you don't see in Mecha. And I really appreciate.
She's definitely represents a kind of, she's the one who, if anyone does, represents like physicalized romantic desire. Not solely physical, but like the fact that she has a very prominent décolletage and then has these two different relationships, which in fairness to the show, the show's not at all judgmental about the idea that she might be in love with one guy and then they fall out because they have, difficulty navigating the fact that they live in the same workplace and so forth. And then she falls in love with someone else and that's fine. None of this is to be taken too seriously because it's Martian Successor Nadesico.
Yeah.
But like, I think, she represents that particular kind of, relatively physically expressed kind of romantic experience.
There's just also a lot of, with that relationship in particular, there's a lot of very economical stuff the show does with her relationships and her character arc that don't get a lot of time, but are just really, really nice and subtle. Goat carrying her new fiance out of the battlefield after he gets shot. And there's a quick shot of her having an expression, like visibly reacting to that. And that's all that happens there. And I just think that stuff like that happens with her a lot. That's really, really good.
So I think it's really cool because, Goat and her are this, like, tier above, or, like, when you think of Mecha, it's very young adult, and, like, you have that tier on the ship of the people that are interacting with Akito and them, and then this is just a step above. These are the people who've been, like...
She's a little more mature, yeah.
Yeah, they bring a maturity to the show that Mecha doesn't always engage with in a way that, like, actually addresses that there's two different levels of experience. Like, she also exists, I mean, very simply, she's the One-san character. She is a big sister to the other women on the ship in a way that's very interesting. When we get our other secretary character who joins us later, the co-helmswoman, she again is a big sister type who is just really kind of there to, like, well, the second one muddies the water, but she exists to, like, actually talk to these girls and be like, yeah, I have experience, and, like, these things are complicated, but that's life. You just gotta kind of do it. Like,
and Minato sits, in particular, she sits next to Ruri, on the bridge, and there's several, I think more than several times, like, she's the one who's just quietly in the background talking back and forth with Ruri, which sets up gags and so forth. Yeah. But again, contributes to that sense that, she's, as you say, she has this kind of camaraderie, as many of the characters do, but she particularly expresses that. Yeah, definitely.
Our next on the list is your man, the mysterious Mr. Prospector. So Mr. Prospector is assumedly an accountant working for Nergal. His allegiance is to the Nadesico, as everybody on the Nadesico is. He's got plots. He's an old school hacker compared to Ruri, who is like new kid, very good hacker. He's also generally used to how do I say, move the plot forward in a fun way. When they're retaking the ship, he pulls in with a ramen cart full of the female cooks.
Good.
Holy
it's
shit.
So good.
And then proceeds to make everybody ramen.
It's strongly implied that he's very good at martial arts, I think, because they don't show it. And it's much funnier because they don't show it. But in that scene, he turns up and then they cut to the guards having been completely disabled and so forth. So,
I
his
love
outfit also just rules. I love his character design. One of the better, actually, everybody's all of the uniforms, everybody looks really good throughout the whole thing.
The uniforms are really fun. Like, it's a different take on it, but like stylized. Like, I know exactly that I'm in a military sci-fi, but like,
yes.
What Mr. Prospector does to the story is he reminds us that we are working with a budget, guys. Hey, Mecha costs money. This is capitalism. We are blowing up too many things. We have to sell ourselves to the military because we've been blowing too many things up. He is constantly running the number.
And he's also, he's not a character who, again, has tons of interiority, but he does have a a route through the show in that he begins, I think, as thoroughly a company man, and then about halfway through the show, it becomes to be clear he has switched that loyalty to the ship, to the crew. And although he always remains an accountant to the end, by the end of the show, he has formed that kind of identity with the rest of the crew rather than being a kind of simply representing the interests of Nergal.
Right.
Speaking of another character who isn't simply serving the interest of Nergal, Brian, tell me about Goat.
Dilf alert.
He is 9 feet tall, and almost equally wide.
His official art, he is literally just a refrigerator. That's a refrigerator. Yeah. There's no neck. There's never been a neck on that body.
He's really fun. He is. I like that you put him and Prospector together, because on the episode where they take the ship back, those are the two characters where you're not 100% positive they're going to be on board. I mean, Mr. Prospector's doing the ramen cart thing pretty early on, but you don't find out that Goat stole the master key until like the very end, right? And I think, again, his relationship with everybody else, he probably has, along with Prospector, has like probably the least to do, the least amount of screen time, but he's used very effectively. He's very consistent. I like that he gets to do stuff when he gets to do it. He is also Solid Snake, because at some point he just does CQC on a room full of guys, and that's also awesome too.
I don't know if this is the case, but I wonder if his design is partly a visual reference to Duke Togo in Golgo 13, who's like a very heavy built assassin. I don't know.
I could see that.
Could be completely off, but it's a thought that occurs.
It looks close. I see that. I do just like him because, like, he doesn't just serve the purpose. Like, his relationship with Minato just comes up. Like, we learn it as a plot point because they're just, like, surreptitiously doing this. We learned, I think it's the Christmas episode when they kiss. Like, episode 12 is when we finally, or 13. But I like that he exists outside of that, and I don't know. It's just interesting. Nergal is interesting to me. You know what else is interesting, though? We don't just have one cook. We have the best cafeteria staff on any vessel ever. Miss Haume and the Haume girls, as they're called.
MILF that thing.
So Miss Haume is a old retired soldier that we learned in one episode. She is the head chef, and she cares deeply about this ship being fed, pilots getting good food, having food to go with. She has a staff of 5 girls. Each of them do have names. Sayori Taraski, Junko Mizuhara, Mikato Sato, Harumi Tanaka, Eri Uramura, but they're all just called the Haume girls.
Yep.
They perform in the beauty contest as one, doing a cute little song. They do a little, like, whole dance in the kitchen. What I find interesting is, number one, Haume, Miss Haume, the head chef, she's just like,
she rules.
She's like another goat. She's another, like, I'm an adult who has done war before, and I'm looking out for you kids, but she gives a motherly vibe that Aikido needs in a cool way. I like when they get re-enlisted in the military, and she's walking with, like, a special forces badge, and is like, oh shit, I said I'd never be a soldier again, and you're like, this woman has killed so many.
God forgive me, I have to go back to the old me.
This is a little piece of well-observed production design, which I don't think any real military would do. But the military badge, I think, possibly the badge of the whole military, but certainly the military badge in that question is just a handgun. Like, it's not,
it's a gun.
It's not like not a fancy old artillery piece or like a coat of arms. It's just a handgun, which I thought was quite funny. Yeah.
Real Battlefield 4 class selection. That's for the real ones. What I think the Haume girls do as far as a mecha perspective is, in a lot of mecha and anime in general, you have a bunch of background girls, and there's always going to be freaks out there who latch onto those background girls. I'm one of them. And the fact that they both platform them and give them some, like they interact with the crew. They're not just there as, like,
I think, and maybe it's worth briefly mentioning it's a slightly unusual choice to foreground the food. Like, I don't know who does the cooking on the battleship Yamato, and it's not a big part of the show, but it is another element of the, one of the stronger parts and one of the more admirable parts of Nadesico is it does have this kind of humanist not in the sense of internet atheist, but like humanist as in like interested in the value of humans and their lives. Like it has this time to pause and be like, people do the cooking on this ship. Akito would actually in many ways rather be a cook. There are other people on the ship whose job it is to supply food to the crew. And that's actually something we're going to bother showing you, which again is of a piece with the general refusal in the show to focus simply on the kind of core space battleship Yamato. We have to get to Gamulus and bring 100%. Back the Cosmo Reverse. Yeah. And I say this as someone who very much likes Space Battleship Yamato, and I think the people who made Nadesico probably also quite like Space Battleship Yamato. But like, there's an interesting decision there around food, and Home and the kitchen staff in general are definitely like a part of that.
Totally.
Next, this one's I'm counting this because I think it's kind of important to Nadesico, but Itsuki Kazama. So in the Christmas episode, she shows up as the replacement. Originally meant to have a much bigger part, which comes in later in the series. They kind of reuse her character.
Really? That's interesting, because she bites it really bad.
She does. They retcon it pretty good. There's really not much to say. I just wanted to give her credence.
And in a way, she's a parallel to Guy. And the fact, she's not mad about Super Robot Anime, but the fact that she's like a competent pilot, turns up and is then almost immediately killed is like Guy, and it's like the other instances in the show when you're reminded that people are dying. So when Yorika has to activate the distortion field that crushes the Martian survivors.
Brutal.
And the family that Akito stayed with on the moon when he boson jumped there. It's not like a mass death like the one on Mars, but like there's a bit of time devoted to pointing out that one of the consequences of the fight with the Jovians in that episode is I think the mother of the family is killed, and this pilot who turns up is like another instance of the show having that slight edge to it. They're not having people not die, and they're not obscuring the fact that people are being killed in these conflicts. And then there'll be more gags, but
it's really weird because we can talk about it. The show has such an interesting thing with death, specifically the episode where they are half shooting their own forces and half shooting the enemy. They make it very pointed that every single one of those UN pilots is ejecting to a comical degree.
Yes. And I think that's part of like the space it's playing with in terms of the genre too, where it's like either your mecha show is either going to have like a casualty every 12 seconds or absolutely none.
So next, we have Nagari Akatsuki. He is redacted, the CEO of Nergal, who puts himself on the ship to neg Akito for 20 episodes. He hates anime. That's his character trait, is he's like, anime isn't real. You need to live in the real world, which is he's literally anti Jiro. Just like, no, you can't enjoy that. That's childish. What do you do? He literally just shows up at Akito's room at regular intervals, be like, why are you watching anime like a sad anime boy?
He's just...
He literally gets barges in twice, and he just stands there like, you're a little bitch.
Well, he does eventually reveal at the show's end that he did watch some cartoons growing up, and he says the ones he liked were the ones where both sides had reasons for fighting. So it's suggested that maybe...
he was a Gundam fan.
Nagare Akatsuki represents like the kind of hardcore real robot, like not just Gundam, but like Takahashi Ryosuke, Fan of the Sun Dagram kind of world of which is also a world with its merits.
There's the divide, right? It wasn't originally Super Robot and hardcore mecha. Those fans hated each other because they were like, "You're not being realistic. You're being too realistic."
It's a complicated one, I think, and partly because what we think of as real robot anime is a really complicated distinction, which probably deserves an episode of its own. Came out of Super Robot anime, so it's originally there was only Super Robot shows. And I think also Akatsuki is there to be a potential villain. He's not exactly a villain, but there are a couple of bits of the show where he's kind of an antagonist.
Next up, we have Inez Frazange, the host of Naze Nani Nadesico. She exists, one, to have a twist at the end that you could pick up on, and two, to explain things. They save her from the colony, and we learned that time distortion happened. We learned that time distortion is a thing because we're a mecha, we got to do it. But she literally exists so that if something is being explained, she can come in and explain it better. And
she literally is in the show, diegetically, she is psychic, but only when somebody needs something explained to them.
Yeah. You mentioned the time travel aspect. One of the facets of Nadesico, which I think is slightly less prominent in even science fiction anime today, is that the people writing Nadesico have spent quite a lot of time reading what we would today regard, I guess, as kind of classic science fiction, quite a lot of it American. So there's an episode which is partly a play on the famous short story about the cold equations. So the episode is partly like a repudiation of the cold equations, which is correct. It's a very annoying story, which the next episode previews make references to different like classic bits of sci-fi. So like, the writers have been reading Asimov and Heinlein, and they've been reading about science fiction concepts like whether you can have a particle that is independent of the forces that are unleashed when something happens. I'm not a physicist, so I'm not going to get into the. So for science is often the vehicle for like, let's name some physicists, and you can sort of hear the people who've been into that stuff cracking their knuckles when and getting down to writing these little bits of script about, and I think that's partly a generational thing in that at the maniac end of people watching anime and science fiction in Japan in the 90s, you have a larger group of people like the Gainax, the people who formed the Gainax, the first generation of Gainax, a group of people who've been reading Starship Troopers, etc., etc., etc. Whereas today, I think you don't see that nearly as much in anime because that particular bit of cultural literacy has faded into the background, as it should. It's old, and Heinlein was kind of annoying, and Asimov was even more annoying, and there are many problems with these writers. But like, It's an interesting, looking at it now, it's an interesting aspect of Nadesico, which I think is different to today. It's kind of historically striking that it has this engagement with science fiction, and that often comes out through Frisange, who both her own plot is about time travel and is about her experiencing one of these science concepts, but also she's there to tell you about.
Yeah, completely. One of the things I find super striking about the show is how much it grapples with actually really cool, hard science fiction ideas. Yeah. Like the idea of how a planetary barrier would work.
Yeah, and clearly these people have spent a bunch of time reading this stuff, probably for fun.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah. There's when we go into, oh my god, did I accidentally cut out Chief Mechanic? No, I missed Saya. Sorry, guys. I know the Saya fans in the chat. Saya Uribatka, the head mechanic. I missed him. But we get
Uribatake, I think it is, something like that. But don't worry about it.
Yeah, Uribatake. Oh my god, I got it wrong. I spelled my spelling wrong.
But that one girl calls him Uri P. That's his name to me.
That's right, because Hikaru is also, like him, interested in plastic models. And so Uribatake is really, really into robots, specifically. He says in one episode, I've been in love with killing machines for dozens of years. Which...
now I'm not interested in the killing part.
When the plot requires there to be a highly unstable experimental Aestivalis, like he's the person who's built one, like, illicitly in the background.
Yes. He's good. I love that his arc starts with a weird, janky little robot that shoots a bunch of missiles and, like, can't function at all. And also, that's the same robot he uses to save Eureka in the penultimate arc.
But I also think it's important to note that, like, he is so in love with the genre. He's the genre guy. When they go into his room, though, his model kits that he has in his room are Star Trek models. Yes. Which I think is, like, very, very specific and interesting.
One of the producers for the show in a newspaper interview at the time, at the time, said that Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation were influences. Now,
absolutely.
It's the Enterprise. Let's be honest, right? Like, it's got Enterprise vibes.
Yeah, and obviously, I think given this is an interview being given in the 1990s, there's probably all interviews are themselves advertising, and there's probably an element of like, let's piggyback on the popularity of this currently airing thing. But I also completely believe it, and I think the Star Trek models, that's less legible if you're like a serious anime fan and you're not that interested in American science fiction TV. That's probably less legible. But those Star Trek models are definitely like a reminder that these people have been watching Star Trek, even if you haven't. So yeah.
I mean, they literally call them communicators, you know, like they're going for it.
Gunbuster has TOS.
Right. No, totally. Like, this is it would be a mistake to draw like a hermetic wall between these worlds of science fiction. Absolutely, yes.
In the way that we get media from Japan and drink it like sweet nectar, they do the same to our media. These things happen. Yeah. Lastly, of the named characters I want to get to, the Jovians or whatever, who cares? Arena Wan, the co-helmsman, she exists. She is the secretary to the CEO of Nergal and comes in to advance the plot by being kind of mean, and like everyone else ends up loving the Nadesico and everybody.
It's implied that she might be one of the many female characters who are unaccountably attracted to Akito. There's a couple of scenes where there are things you could interpret romantically.
She certainly does protest too much about it.
The show never takes that seriously. Even by the standards of things, it does take seriously.
She has real Misato vibes from Eva, but actively probably actually doesn't want to be in a relationship. She's just like, sometimes people are attracted to people, and it's not more than that. I think if you were 14, she might come across like Misato does. But because Nadesico has a slightly, it's not terribly older, but like a slightly older sense of its characters, she doesn't. And you sort of see outside her a bit more.
She is a zealot for Nurgle. Like, she has dedicated her entire life to Nurgle's advancement, and that is like her primary goal. Like, she doesn't even want to leave the ship that's exploding until Akatsuki commands her to do it.
And then one more that we do have to talk about, which is both a mecha and a character in the show, and I didn't put on the outline, the Nadesico itself.
Oh.
It has like it has interiority. It is a character. It has a shipboard AI that
has opinions.
It has opinions.
Omoi Kane, the AI, writes a little poem about how much it likes its memories, which is interesting.
And that's also one of the
those
titles,
unforgettable days. Yes, yeah.
Oh my god, it's so beautiful. As far as assault carriers, A++. I love this guy. I love the Nadesico so much.
Unmatched. And the show also loves it so much to the degree that it makes 4 other ones and doesn't change the design at all.
Hey, they change the design when they add them together. Multiple
One thing
points.
I would say is, and again, kind of coming back to the way that this is actually something you can see even if you haven't seen many robot shows and still enjoy, but also the kind of space operatic. If you think about the range of anime which are space opera stories in which there aren't giant robots, if you like the Nadesico has a cool ship on which people live, there's a decent chance you probably would enjoy, Space Battleship Yamato and Space Pirate Captain Harlock. The Arcadia and the Yamato, the Nadesico is not in any way a particularly audacious and experimental in its craft, but the people making it understand how you board a scene to make a ship look cool and to make its interior feel like somewhere you could live. And if you're interested in that effect, and you really like it when oceans are battlefields and Napoleon is master of Europe or whatever, maybe if you haven't tried them, I would recommend going and looking at things like Space Battleship Yamato or the 78 Captain Harlock, directed by Rintaro, which actually is very experimental in the way it's presented, and they do a really good job with that here. They completely convey the idea that this is a place people live on. It's also a very cool ship.
It's an incredibly cool ship. We talk about mechs as spaces, carriers as spaces like this. By the end of the show, these places feel familiar. They feel lived in. I love the fact that they have an observation room, which is just a straight up holodeck. I love the bridge having the bridge has 3 tiers and Eureka's little station's on the top tier. That top tier has headlights for some reason. It looks amazing. I really like it.
It also has comfy cushions behind it, so other characters like the Prospector could everybody's on the bridge for every fight, just kind of talking. The pilots have their own seats up there because of course they do. But I also love that the show is as invested in the Nadesico. The characters are obsessed with the Nadesico. In the show, they do a whole bit where they're recording a Learn About the Nadesico segment with Eureka dressed like a rabbit and Ruri leading it because people like Ruri more. And they and here's the tonnage and here's this and shit that as a battleship pervert, I'm hell yeah, let's go. So I did want to talk episode by episode, but we do have to talk about the plot of Nadesico. So I want to talk about it kind of in an overall way. So the general plot of Nadesico is Nergal is putting together a crew to take back Mars so they can control the technology behind boson jumping.
Yep.
That's the paper explanation. But let's talk about what happened 100 years ago. So 100 years ago on Mars, a populist movement started for a free Mars, basically.
Right? I apologize if...
Oh, the 100 years ago thing was the moon.
It was. They went to Mars after that. You're correct. So they started a movement. Nergal, being the Weyland-Yutani of this universe, starts a movement to make them seem like radicals so that the United Earth Federation can crush them in their infancy. They basically get expelled, the Earth takes over the moon, and those rebels fly to Mars to set up a colony and to live freely. And you'll never guess, but through lobbying, Nergal's like, they're probably going to come back. You should finish that off. So the United Earth government is like, yeah, we'll just nuke them. So they nuke Mars, kill everybody there, but there are survivors who escape, and they head to the only other place habitable in the solar system, Jupiter and her moons. Which, as we know from sci-fi, if you're a real sci-fi head, that's it. That's the only other option we got. You guys have seen... Oh, shit, what was that? Fuck, what was the
there are lots of mecha anime in which Jupiter... So in Galgaigar, in Jupiter is where the really mysterious villains are. Paptimus Sirocco comes from Jupiter in Zeta Gundam, and there are a bunch of others where Jupiter is sort of, and it is one of the most charismatic planets. I mean, like people don't have like a mental image of Saturn necessarily, but everyone knows what Jupiter looks like. So.
I mean, they picked it for that iconic the image of seeing a tulip open and there's that like gate to the red spot on Jupiter on the other side is an iconic image. They absolutely nailed it with that one.
I mean, and it has, let's be honest, the best words. Like all of the moons have sick names, and like it's just like the Jovians, like what a great name for a people. I want to be a Jovian.
And perhaps it's worth registering as a side note that for quite a long time, the show doesn't dig into its main plot and its premise. So the first half has a bunch of one-off episodes.
Tiptoes around it.
And, which are written by different writers, which the show often names and points out in its next episode previews, which is unique in my experience in anime. And it'll be like, here's the one-off premise of this episode, much like something like The Next Generation or Star Trek in general. Like, here's the one-off episode plot, we do that plot, we move on. And then in the second half, it gets into this plot that Alice is describing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very interesting too because the survivors go and find precursor technology in an old factory on Jupiter, and also on Mars, Nergal starts to find precursor technology. All of this is love a precursor. I love a precursor civilization every time.
Love it when a cursor is pre.
What if we wanted advanced technology and we just like didn't have to explain where this came from? Just somebody was
some kind of giant god
right?
on the beach on the planet you colonize, for example. Just to pluck an example out of thin air.
Random examples. But what it does that's very cool is like, okay, Nadesico in a weird way echoes the plot of the original Gundam. They're jumping, from space to Earth, back and forth. Like the traversal that a mecha crew goes through is always very interesting to me. Also, this show starts with a colony drop. I just want to shout out the colony drop that the show starts with. Is really good. But, okay, I want to talk about the Jovians, because that's... When we get into Season 2, we get more into the Jovians. So, first half of the show, the Jovians are an alien lizard people.
All we ever see are machines. Right? So they send these grasshopper-like unmanned machines through these teleporters. And
including specifically the... I really liked when the Battle of Kursk episode happens, and first off, they have tanks, but they're all Tiger 1 tanks, which, like, great. I was, as a fan, happy. Weird that is a factory in Russia. But they break into them, and they're being driven by
Jovian,
little
Jovian insect droids, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it's really good.
So we only see that, and I think the way that war in these different spaces is always interesting because, like, the Jovians being alien element is like immediate carte blanche that we can just kill them wantonly, right? Like we as listeners, we as children who are watching a fun anime show, yeah, bad lizard people, kill them, obviously. And the show plays with that really cool because we learned that the Jovians are actually expat humans from Earth who have an entire society based around an old anime mecha show.
So when the Jovians fled to Jupiter, seemingly the only entertainment or culture that they had with them, one's impression is, was Gekigangar 3. So we should probably, to characterize Gekigangar 3 itself, for the first half of the show.
Yeah, we should talk about it. I think that was a great time to talk about it.
We're introduced to, in the first episode, Guy Daigoji is really into Gekigangar 3, has the show with him, has loads of merch with him. And we see little bits of the show as Akito reviews Guy's collection of like the episodes of Gekigangar 3. I saw someone on OSD's Discord who hasn't seen Nadesico, wondering whether, you know, they would struggle with the show because they like Getter Robo, and I don't think they would. Gekigangar 3 is based on a bunch of different 70s super robot shows. The most prominent one of those is Getter Robo. So like Getter Robo, it's a combining 3-part robot with 3 pilots, and the 3 pilots have similar silhouettes to the Getter team. They work with a professor like Professor Saotome in Getter Robo. But there are other elements in Gekigangar 3 which come from Combat Le V. So things like, I think it's Prince Akara, the antagonist, and his assistant, Mia, who's in love with him, but he doesn't notice, is very like the villains in Combat Le V. And there are other elements that also recall Mazinger Z. So it's not, the point of Nadesico isn't that like Getter Robo is bad, or evil or whatever, but they are definitely playing with the idea of 70s super robots specifically. And there quite a lot of effort. Like with any good bit, a key to doing a good bit is to really commit to it. And they put quite a lot of effort into making the footage for Gekigangar 3 look like it's from the 70s. So the way it's animated and the way it's drawn.
And even filtered, when they produce it, they filter it in a way that's different from
and it looks really distinct and period. So that's what Gekigangar 3 is like. And the Jovians have designed their society around it.
In a way that is hilarious, like, their uniforms are Showa era uniforms. Their entire society is based around, like, very specifically, there's an episode where 2 of the female people from the Nadesico come over, and people are walking around eggshells because the manly man force just is like, well, in our society, which is based on the Bible that is Gekigangar 3, female characters are all reserved and elegant, beautiful women, like the one female character
Miss
from
Nanako.
the show, and we have it's so perfect. It's I love how they do it, but they also like they have a room that just looks like a Showa era classroom that they just have on their ship. They just continuously implement these things that are like, oh yeah, I guess if that's all you had as a touchstone of culture,
I think
makes sense.
Several things about this. The first thing is, if the Jovians weren't obsessed with Gekigangar 3, when I first watched the show, once they started dropping hints about the Jovians, I kind of grasped there's some connection between them and Gekigangar 3. But until then, I just figured you could have Gekigangar 3 in the show and it would work anyway. And like, cause there are episodes where there'll be a little bit of Gekigangar 3, and what's happening in that show will be reflecting what's happening in Nadesico. And when I first watched the show in the first half, I figured that was its role in the show. And I think it's the decision. This is what I was saying about taking things further. It's not unknown in anime to be like, there's an anime inside the anime that the characters watch, and that's used to make some points and stuff. That's a familiar televisual technique. Deciding that there's an entire civilization who've treated that as their Bible, and gradually revealing how actually that's made them quite fucked up is like a level of taking that forwards that I think many many people wouldn't think of. And I think that's one of the striking things about Nadesico. Then a little later, the characters decide on the basis of their shared, they discover the Jovians also love Gekigangar 3. And they're, you know, the Nadesico's crew, when they watch Gekigangar 3, the lesson they take from it is, you know, people should work together. And if we share this love of something, you know, we should be able to communicate. So they they don't sue for peace. They open peace negotiations with the Jovians.
Petition for peace, maybe.
The message, not all Jovians, but the message that the Jovian leadership has taken from Gekigangar 3 is that, you know, the way to treat your enemies is with unrelenting violence, and evil should be destroyed. And the kind of culmination of this is a scene, and there aren't that many scenes in Nadesico which visually pull from Gundam, but it's a scene in which there's a fortress which looks like a Baoku, and there's a scene which, there's a scene which very much recalls the famous scene of Garma's funeral in the original Gundam. So the military leader of the Jovians is giving a funeral for one of their officers who's actually been shot on his own orders, but they're pretending he's a martyr. It's presented like a concerning political rally, and instead of Sieg Zion, the thing they shout is "Let's Gekiga in," which is like the kind of let's combine.
Also, just
phrase.
a shout
Go ahead,
out,
Brian. Yeah,
the guy giving this funeral also just looks exactly like Giran.
Yeah.
Just
no, quite. Yeah. No, he's modelled on the same kind of bullet-headed military appearance. So none of this is now the ultimate conclusion that Nadesico has, I think, is what Akito says at the end, when rather than simply rejecting Gekigangar 3 as Akatsuki does, Akito says, you know, what I'm going to take away from Gekigangar 3 is the affection I had for it and my memories of it. I'm not going to imprint on the thing in itself, but I'm going to value like the experience I had with it. Which seems like a pretty sensible way of treating these things. So the point of the show is not that Gekigangar 3 is like an evil force which should be eliminated from culture, but it is, I think, to come back to, I apologize for filibustering, and I'll clear the mic in a moment, but to come back to Nadesico's point in history, just for a bit of historical perspective, when Nadesico aired, Mazinger Z was younger than Nadesico is now. So less time had passed since the beginning of animated super robots.
Wow.
When Nadesico aired, then has passed since Nadesico aired, but it's 1996. So the existence of anime fan clubs since the late 70s, mid to late 70s, and then the OVA boom and the rise of the first generation of anime creators who are very into anime themselves, people like the founders of Gainax, has happened. And I don't think the Jovians are not an allegory for Gainax. Like, they're not, it's not as straightforward as that, but there is, applicability rather than allegory, as the man said. There is, I think, some value in thinking about Nadesico as specifically thinking about that experience of the first, one or two generations of people who grew up with super robot anime. As it's not just about how do we relate to mecha anime. It's, I think, quite specifically about how do we relate to mecha anime as some of the people who either were children when it was airing or were children, in the next generation and were showed it by older siblings or whatever. I think there's quite a kind of mid-90s specificity to that. And I think it's interesting, therefore, that Nadesico is on this pivot point when late night anime is beginning to open up, but still being made for broadly a general audience. And I think this also explains why it's science fiction, but unusually for science fiction in anime, it's not very cosmopolitan science fiction. So Gundam is very cosmopolitan. Right. It's strongly implied that English is probably the international language in most of the Universal Century, and it has very cosmopolitan casts. There are people in Nadesico who are clearly not Japanese. There's a bunch of them. It's by no means the Nadesico is not an ethno-state. But there's a lot of kanji. All the displays have kanji characters are used. Many of the characters are Japanese, and I think the show.
They have vending machines on the ship. How more Japanese can it be?
Well, they have an onsen too.
And the show is not, I don't think the show is at all exclusionary. I mean, one of the testaments to this is the fact that many people around the world have watched it and enjoyed it. But it is unusually reflective about a specifically Japanese experience of Japanese entertainment. So it's quite a long attempt to get at what it's doing there.
I think it was really good because I've wanted to talk about this the whole time I watched the show.
Yep.
This was the thing I was thinking about, because like the phenomenon of like when you go in to watch something that people around you have talked about, you're going to have certain thoughts echoing through your head as you watch it. And the biggest one for me was that thing that I believe it was Corey said on our Discord that they were kind of leery to watch this because they were afraid it was going to kind of like quote unquote knock the Get a Robo fan out of them. I think that the people who made the show are immense fans
absolutely.
of Get a Robo. And and I think that it's saying, I think it's using its just to kind of build on Thal's point. I think it's using their experience with this genre and its position in their culture to say something about how media folds out of social context broadly. And they're using the Jovians to kind of illustrate this really interesting kind of social like experiment to me, where it's like when because media folds out of the context in which it's created, so it's going to have like hyper focused or hyper highlighted aspects of all of these weird ideologies that went into like the context in which it was created. And so when you turn it around and base an entire culture off of that in return, you're getting like Google Translate like Google translating one thing and then translating it a different language and translating it into a third language. Like it's just this garbled mess where like the extremely sharp points of those things are going to kind of like form a new equation that is just like bizarre. Like we were talking about, women are purportedly like revered, but they're also handled like delicate china. Like there is absolutely, they still don't have any, they're still not like human beings. You know what I mean? It's not
the fact
better.
That Minato has this kind of very rapid, because of the pace of the show, kind of falls in love with a Jovian who winds up on the Nadesico, and the fact that she has romantic agency and wants to, that she falls in love with him, she's happy to tell him, she wants to, be physically intimate with him, is clearly like scrambles his brain, because that's not how the Jovians are meant to think about how women function. And Minato, as we were saying earlier, is that character who most clearly represents kind of straightforward female agency in romance.
Yeah. And I just wanted to pull two quotes from the show that I think really fold into why I think if Corey were to watch this, they would have a really, really good time, which is because it has such a nuanced view of this, right? They're both Akito quotes. The first one is, "I thought I was an adult watching Geki Gengar, but I was just a kid thinking I could be Geki Gengar," right? Which is like there's a slight indictment of the audience there, but it's not an indictment of the audience of like, it's bad that you like this thing. It's you can't just take media exists to be analyzed. Like you can't just like sit there and take things at face value and then just be like, okay, this is like how I'm going to fold this into my personality. And this goes for everything. It has nothing to do with the specific flaws and strengths of one mecha show. You know what I mean? The other quote is, because I liked it. And this is when, Akito's having a breakdown after that guy gets assassinated.
That guy.
He says, sorry, I don't know anybody's names. There are so many characters.
Shiratori
26
is, I think,
episodes.
his surname, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, Shiratori, you're right, totally.
Shiratori.
He says, because I liked it so much, I only saw the parts that made sense to me. Another thing where it's like, not to say there's a right and a wrong way to enjoy media. I think there
but you're
is
about to.
No, I just think that there is I think you miss something about enjoying things when you don't kind of rotate them and look at the sharp edges. And that's why it offends me so fucking much when things like remakes and adaptations file away the things that people think are mistakes.
I'm far from an authority on this, but it is my job to think about like culture and so on. And I hate standing on my credentials, but I guess an opinion I would offer is that none of us should be saying how anyone enjoys something. But if you're going to perform criticism, and I don't want to take the fun out of anything here, because I like, talking about this stuff and thinking about it and writing about it is great fun. But if you're going to do that, you should also enjoy the act of criticism, but you need to, in as much as you can, and there are always limits, you need to try to be responsible and informed, right? And reflective. And those don't have to be heavy burdens or burdens that mean that everything gets reduced to a long list of what's problematic or whatever, because it's both good to think about the ethical charge of something, but also good to avoid reducing things purely to kind of an exercise in ethical fault finding. But I think that something, Nadesico, I wouldn't call it like a subtle show, and I wouldn't call it like a wildly perceptive show, but I think one thing that makes it stand out to me, and made it stand out to me when I first watched it, is that it, in what it says about our experience of television, it says something that's neither trite in the way that like Gundam Seed ends by being like, well, war is really unfortunate, and if you could kill some guys to stop it, that would be cool. And nor does it say something that's, wrong. So it's neither wrong nor right in a way that everyone agrees with, but like it says something that's right, which is that people will take things from their entertainment that they want to see, and those aren't always going to be the things you want them to see. And not everyone agrees with that. Every day I see people posting online about like, oh, I can't believe these right-wingers like this show. And it's like, I promise you that person has an internally consistent feeling experience of the world. You might hate them, and they might hate you. I mean, and they may be wrong. They may be evil people. Like, they may be a net, blight on the earth. We can discuss that. But I promise you they have an internally consistent feeling. I'm not saying it is consistent, but like consistent feeling thought world. And when they watch there are probably people who are, there are a lot of shows that get adopted as these kind of liberal standard bearers, and it's very possible to watch those things in a conservative or hard right way. I promise you. So, and I say this
completely
also as someone who works professionally with pre-modern writing. So like, literature from, the 650s up to about 1500, where we are always reading it as people who have totally different beliefs and morals to the people who produced it. Even if you're a European Christian, your modern Christianity is quite different to the kind of Christianity that produced something in, say, 1350. Not unrelated, but different. And it's easier to see in that case. But I think actually it's something one has to always remind oneself. And so when I come up with an interpretation of something I'm enjoying, I'm often actually second guessing myself, because it's like, am I only seeing the things in it that do I think this is in accordance with my beliefs, because I enjoy it? And I'm often more comfortable when I watch something and I go, this is really well made, and I totally disagree with it. Because then I feel like, oh, okay, well, at least I'm not slipping into, to think of something that's come up on, I think, OSG's Discord recently, which is Space Pirate Captain Harlock from the 1970s. So same era as Geki Gangar 3 wasn't made. Yep. Harlock has this strain of a strong liberal focus on the individual, which, I chafe at. But, that's one of the reasons I'm confident that when I say I think it's a really well-made show, I'm probably right, because I'm not saying that because I happen to agree with it. Anyway, I digress.
You're being so humble.
I think Nadesico's achievement is in this sort of, it manages to say something about interpretation. It's not subtle, but it says it clearly, and I think it's right. Like, I think it's correct. And it was nice to see when I watched it first.
I think, because I want to jump off of these things, because this is where I think, as the kids would say, the juice is. So we are ourselves interpreting Nadesico as a property, as a media. We are interpreting that in our conversation here. What I think, and this is as the dumb laywoman Eureka of our podcast, is, to me, I think this show, and this is my theory and why I really like the show, is it is telling you, hey, maybe it's not that deep. Maybe you don't have to dig that deep into what is essentially a show for entertainment. I think the Jovians are really important to that idea, because, like, I mean, look, they're basically saying if Geki Gangar 3 was the Bible, we went a whole different way with it than you Christians back on Earth. Like, oh, we have the same God as you, but ours says we can kill you. I don't know what metaphor that would be for here, but I think the show really does a lot with like how people interpret it and things. And there's specifically the scene where, like, Akito is dealing with the death of his friend, of Gai Daigoji. And, like, other people on the ship are also going through it. Like, he's with literally the other characters who are like, damn, people died in our lives. And he talks about, like, what are the dead trying to tell us? What are the dead trying to tell us? And the conclusion that the show proposes is that, like, the dead aren't talking to you. The dead are just dead. Like, you can't get caught up in these things. but it also, throughout the show, it's like proposing ideas to you that like, it goes nowhere with some thread. Everything is convenient for the sake of convenience.
Yeah.
It has a level of sexualization of women that is like, you just have to take this. Like, we can interpret the different relationships here, but like, we're just being like, hey, you know, you can, I think of Evangelion a lot with this because like, that show is so self-serious, but has comedy elements in it. But people, especially through the early 2000s and 2010s, were like dedicated to writing up like, what does it mean? And like, maybe you don't need to get that deep. Like, you can. I love the idea, Brian, of the picking it up and looking at it and not filing away those sharp edges, which I feel the Rebuild series filed away the sharp edges.
Thank you so much.
Like, they're good in their own way. I like them because
totally.
I'm the type of person who's like, I'm coming at this with a Eureka element. I love Mecha, and I'm gonna look over all of these bumps that are a part of it to enjoy it. But I also like, we have to be able to talk at these at a deep level. Like, this is a gag comedy show. There is an episode where Ruri, in the span of one episode, we introduce Switzerland if it was an amusement park that was also a bank that flew around. We fight a bunch of Italian pizza makers because they have bad pizza and Ruri won't lie to them about it. And then she goes to the most fucked up old horror orphan child program place, which like, you know what's gonna happen, which is, oh, she never actually had parrot, those were computer programs, we get it. Like, all in one episode, she gets told, you're a princess of a country that is super rich, and you have the worst childhood ever, and nothing that you knew is good, and your actual found family is on the Nadesico, and that's it. 23-minute episode. What the fuck?
That was a great. I last year I played through all the Mass Effect games, and I just want to say that they managed to pack Jack's entire questline from Mass Effect 2 into about 6 minutes of anime.
Well, I was gonna say it's Faye Valentine from Cowboy Bebop. Like, it's that episode, but not like for the shit that happened to this young girl. This show is so irreverent about it.
Sorry.
But like, if I were somebody like critically looking at this and I'm like, let me interpret what it means that Ruri's 4 brothers are identical and also like,
yeah. I did also want to point out also in this episode, the country that she's princess of is called Peaceland, and there's no way this is not going to wing. They're like Edwardian fucking like king and queen. It's called Peaceland. It's like it's related to Peacecraft, the kingdom of people who are pacifists from Gundam Wing. It's perfect.
And the reason it's peaceful is that it's a very bad idea to
Yeah.
anger banks. Prospector says.
Yes.
Yes. They all say that. It's like, they have the money. But the show also, like, let's acknowledge it. The show has a beach episode, right? The show has an episode that is literally a popularity contest of the girls on the ship. And it does these things in a way that is interpreting anime in a very interesting way, where it's talking about, like, we've just gotten to the point where we're ranking the women in our anime based on, like, the character tropes around them. And the beach episode is like, well, that's what you do, and it does it in a way that's like, well, we need to do this in a corporate way.
There's a kind of,
and it's like, oh, we just
again,
wanna
there's a
have
kind
fun.
of
Nadesico.
having your cake and eating it too aspect. And I think in terms of the actual visual presentation, it's mildly sexualized, and there are far more egregious things. That's also not to defend it, but like it's an early evening show from the 1990s. It's not going to be particularly wild, but it is doing that, and I think that it's a having your cake and eating it too thing, right? Because the episode talks about what you're meant to do when you go to the beach, and Uribatake, he says he's going to set up a terrible ramen stall because you're meant to have terrible ramen at the beach, etc., etc., etc. But it still does the thing. Yeah. So you wind up with the problem of doing something ironically, but also doing it, which is a familiar issue.
I totally agree. I also really just appreciated how this episode is in a trail of episodes where Munetake is back and he's an admiral, and he is just screaming in the background while the Nadesico does whatever it wants to do.
It's great.
And in this episode, he gets waterboarded, but it's fine because he's evil. And I just want to say I really appreciated how, yes, like for about I want to say 13 minutes of the episode, it is straight up just a beach episode. And then literally at one point, Rory just like claps her hands and everyone gets to work. And then there's a really sick missile barrage that I expect Alice to talk about later.
God, the missiles in this are great. We
They're
haven't
really
talked
good.
about it, but like, they do great with the Jovian mechs being based on old mecha. Like, the one in that one is like an armored stag beetle that just is like,
well, the Jovian, let's talk about the Jovian designs later. But so I think to come back to what you said about depth, there's a kind of long ongoing sprawling debate in across the whole of the humanities about, what you're meant to look for in things. And I think one of the reasons that popular cultural, what you might call folk criticism, so thinking about things by people outside of the formal academy, which is often better than what people are doing inside the formal academy, I should say. I mean, I think,
sometimes your head does get up your own ass.
It is a known problem, and that it can happen to people both inside and outside universities. But one of the things that's happened, I think, in folk criticism is that a lot of people have absorbed the idea that when something is good, it is good because it has depth, and it has depth because it's good. And I think, actually, it's quite possible for something to be both good and important without being particularly like given. I don't think Nadesico I don't think it demands reams and reams of analysis. I think it's fairly clear about what it's saying. I don't think we're badly wrong because most of it's on the surface. Most of it's in the script. And
it's quite loud about it.
I think it's, and I have a bunch of criticisms of the show that I could make, but I think it is fairly well constructed and clever and cleverly made, I suppose, rather than clever per se. And I think there's a broader debate to be had about, like, when you go looking for goodness, are you looking for depth, or are there a range of things? I think, and sometimes there are certainly some things, and I think there's a piece I shared recently by Peter Chung, who made Aeon Flux, about his experience of watching Space Cobra, directed by Dezaki Osamu, without knowing Japanese and with no translation. And he says, like, this is one of the things that taught me how you direct animation, because I just had to watch it. And it's not a particularly deep or complex show. And he's right. Space Cobra is not.
That's so
but
interesting.
Space Cobra is beautifully made. Like, I would argue certainly one of the best looking TV shows, certainly from the 80s. I mean, potentially from a wider range than that in anime. It's incredibly well done. And so, like, it's okay. I think sometimes we want everything to be fitted into the Procrustean bed, the aesthetic mold of, I guess, the philosophical novel. And actually, not everything needs to be a philosophical novel. And maybe only novels are good at that. Maybe there are other things that animation is good at. So when one says it's not that deep, what I want to say is maybe that's not even a negative thing. Like, it's not deep. Great. Fantastic. Let's talk about how this is 100%.
animated. I recently saw a thing about it was like a making TV social or whatever account that did like a headline that said is Alien Earth the Andor of the Alien series, and I like immediately got like as if somebody was rubbing sandpaper all over me, because I love Andor and I love Alien Earth, but I do not think that is I chafe against the statement, because I don't think Alien Earth is. To me, Andor is an important piece of anti-fascist rhetoric that I think everyone should, or at least has important pieces of anti-fascist rhetoric in it that I think everyone should take to heart. I cannot say anything about the quote unquote values of Alien Earth. I just think it's incredibly well made. I think it looks visually immaculate. I think that everything comes together extremely well. And I don't think it's quote unquote that deep about it. And like, that's okay. You know what I mean? Not every TV show needs to be Andor to be good.
While I do want us to continually talk about interpreting media on this media interpretation podcast, we do need to talk about a couple other key points, which is the sci-fi of it, right? I just want to ask you two, what do you think about the time travel here?
So there's basically in Plotty Plot, there are two main examples of time travel. Not including I, which is kind of its own. Well, I and Inez at the end, I would consider one event. But the first one, which is when Akito purportedly travels 2 weeks backward in time, I had a really hard time understanding the relationship between place and event, and those 3 episodes. I think like the intermission between them. I felt like a lot of assumptions were made about like at least my understanding of the plot so far. And so like until the end, I was a little bit confused about the order of operations there for like a really long time. And I think that is a massive pitfall of telling a time travel story. And the fact that I fell into it may say more about like my ability to interpret events more than the writing. I think the first time
I watched the show, I was also confused about what was that. And I think that sort of...
Yeah.
I'm confused every time. That's it. I'll say it.
As someone, who does maybe tend more to look towards surfaces and construction, I'm less driven by an interest in plot, which makes me more accepting of that sort of thing.
Sure.
And that may be a bad, that may be a character flaw. I don't know. We can take different positions on that. For me, a lot of the time travel stuff in Nadesico is a combination of stuff that's simply actually, frankly, just useful for the plot. Like it helps move things along. That's the real interest we have at heart here. And secondly, I think it's textural, not textual, but textural. It's adding texture. So I mentioned earlier, like that facet of the show that it's written by, and some of the audience is addressing, not all, but some are these people who are familiar with written science fiction and are interested in these narratives. And I think probably some of the stuff about, Frasange explaining that travel in space could be travel in time is not there because it's particularly profound. It's there because it's fun for both the people writing the show and the people watching it to kind of be reminded of these ideas. So I wouldn't pitch Nadesico as a time travel story in the way that there are,
literally 3 characters can do it and not die. Probably, I think is what we confirmed.
I don't even know if I'd call Nadesico exactly speculative fiction or science fictional in the way that it's not really that interested in how technology might change. The ability to boson jump doesn't affect people's characters. We don't see how it affects society. It's not like core to what the show is doing. It's definitely space opera,
right?
But I don't know that the show is working with the SF ideas it invokes, as opposed to simply, and this is not an error, but like it simply invokes them to allow things to happen and because it's fun to talk about them.
Because, well, I like that you use the word textural, just because I like the fact that it is revealed that the teleportation is not teleportation. It's just good. But
it's not, I know that kind of clearly conveying that kind of time hopping narrative or space hopping narrative is really hard to do. And I'm not sure television, and there are television shows which are good at it. Weirdly, I think games, because of their interfaces, can be much better at it. So something like Radiant Historia or 13 Sentinels, keeping my mouth shut about exactly how 13 Sentinels, exactly what kind of travel is going on there. But,
thank you.
13 Sentinels has an in-game wiki that's fun to navigate, where the UI becomes more and more sophisticated as the plot gets more complicated, so that you can stay on top of and visualize what's happening. And you can't really do that really cool. with TV. It's not an affordance of the medium, if you want to use fancy words, which I don't particularly want to use, but it's just not something that TV lets you do.
I've never used those in my life. I think it's really cool. I think all of the sci-fi that they implemented this does kind of feel that same way, where it's just like, this is of convenience and because we wanted to use it. Like the black gun, the black hole railgun that they deploy for one episode is just like, or the bomb boson jumping gun that just becomes a main plot.
And that's a fun tactical concept. And it gives
a
Eureka
really fun concept
to outmaneuver, which is great.
It's so
good.
And
it's a thing we see all the time, especially in like in this podcast that did Metal Gear. It's like having a weapon so powerful, having a character immediately say like, we can never do that again. And then that really, really puts all the characters in a great position to, at the end, when Eureka wants to use it and everyone's like, are you sure? And then they don't end up using it. It's so good.
I think that's also an allusion to Space Battleship Yamato, because I'm pretty sure I remember
I didn't get that one.
Some of the script around the wave motion cannon in both the original Yamato, and then I think they lean into it even more in the 2199 version. So the Yamato's main gun is so powerful that they become increasingly worried about like when and where they should even feel okay about using it. And the original Yamato famously has an amazing scene near the end where there's a huge battle and the Yamato has destroyed all this stuff. And And then, the music ends and they're just surrounded by devastation and the hero throws down his rifle and breaks it on the ground. And he's like, victory, this is bullshit.
We have to talk about the Jovians deploy mechs that look exactly like Geki Gengar 3. They have done it. They have developed mechs that look like the mechs of old, and they dress up like they pilot them. The
uniforms are lit. Should we talk? Do you have a section marked to talk about mechs specifically, or
the mecha review? I think now is a great time if we want to talk about them. Let's. I
think Brian's right that the Jovian robots are interestingly like and not like the Geki Gengar. Is that what you were about to say?
That is what I was going to say. The only other thing I was going to say is that I don't really like them, but that's immaterial to the other thing.
And I think they're often presented, if you look at how they're shot through the notional camera, so where the imaginary camera is placed in the boarding, they're often shot in ways that are very intimidating. So they have super robot shapes, but they're not. If you look at them, they don't map entirely onto Geki Gengar 3, and then they're often presented as though they're war machines, and that's often intercut with the characters in the cockpits will be saying things like, let's Geki Gengar in. They keep scripts from Geki Gengar 3 in their cockpits, so they know what to say.
He literally pulls one up and reads from the manga edition or something. It's great.
But, so I think with the Jovian robots, my impression is that, what they're aiming for was this sense of, not uncanny valley, but like in the valley between being Geki Gengar 3 and clearly not being Geki Gengar 3, whatever kind of valley you would call that. I should we haven't mentioned the title of Geki Gengar 3. Gekiga is a movement of more adult and mature themes and plots in like 60s and 70s comics in Japan.
Oh.
It's why they're the superior male force versus the young boy brigade, the shonen brigade.
Geki Gengar is like, the title itself is a joke because it's like the Gekiga bit sounds like it might be linked to this kind of tradition of more mature things, but then the show is actually for children. Right. It's a good show, but it's for kids. Yeah, it's a fun.
Thank you. I had no idea. I would never have known. That's awesome.
That's why we brought you on, Professor. So to talk to you about the other mechs, the Aestivalis that the Nadesico has. Yeah, those are mechs on paper.
It's surprising how the show is not very robot forward. So in a way you see surprisingly little.
They're there, but in a way that is like, we don't really get mech on mech fighting. We get mechs destroying waves and waves of robots, which is fine.
I think only at the very end when Akatsuki and Akito fight each other, which are presented partly as comedy.
Yeah.
Nerval, who is the Anaheim Electronics, is just pumping out these mechs. They've invented mechs, Zionic Corporation, they're just going for it, and
they are. And if you the first episode is, I think, one of the very few with serious bravura mecha animation in it, and it is very cool. And when they briefly show you the Aestivalis is doing things, they do look very nice. Like they have very fast spinning tracks on their feet, a little bit like the armored troopers,
Botoms, yep.
They can fire their fists like rocket punches, but on cables.
Because the Jovians have shields, so how else our guns our lasers don't work? We've got to punch them to death.
They also have like stuff like progressive knives, and they have those cool like lightning lance things that they use sometimes.
Which can penetrate
things from all of these other mecha things. Like I get real like mix of Pat Labor, mix of Macross. They really evoke those looks.
The show doesn't make a big deal of it, but the core Aestivalis unit can be put into different frames. Again, because it's not very robot forward, they don't make a point of this, but
it just is. Yeah,
you do see them in different frames. So there's like an artillery frame and a ground frame and a zero-G frame.
There's an armor frame too, and that one I remember because Ryuko doesn't like it. She's like really clumsy in it, and it weighs her down. It's really good.
You can imagine a different kind of show which would present these much more. I'm very happy to assign ratings to them if you want to. If you reckon we should. Okay,
that's not the time. Yeah. Trust me.
Not the time.
You'll
okay.
Know so there are a couple of other things that I think I want to personally bring up. I think we can I feel like we've touched a lot on this. Like, you could talk for a long time about this, and I feel like it would be a very jovial conversation to go through, like, just what episodes we like, what things here, like, there's a bunch of different little fun things in this that you could just, like, sit with your friends. The show is great to just talk with your friends about, because, like, it ain't that deep, but it can be kind of vibe. Specifically, I want to talk about what I think is one of my favorite confession scenes in a mecha ever, which is Eureka does not want to admit that Akito is like, I can't admit that I love her, and she storms off, injects herself with nanomachines is the implication, but we all know she had them, gets in an Aestivalis and leaves, and he's like, I gotta get her, and chases her, jumps in the cockpit, and it's the culmination of a running joke in the show, which is, we gotta talk about it. When they're on comms, there's always a pop-up screen, and the show just plays with it popping up and moving around in
it's
whatever
one of the better
is the
gags.
funniest
It's
way
good.
ever. At one point, it's through the prospector. It's projecting through him.
And there's a physicality to them too, where it's like they can be obstructive. Like there are several moments where Akito has to like swat people away while he's trying to fight. Yeah,
it's not the only show that does a line in this kind of joke, but it is one of the outstanding ones.
Bravern does it as well. Yeah.
I
was thinking about Bravern a lot just because obviously they're playing with a lot of the same stuff. I think I kind of like what Nadesico's up to a little bit more in terms of how it's looking at genre.
I think, and then it's great because Rory, who exists to be a meta character, is like, I'm gonna patch this through to the entire fleet, and they all have to hear the confession in which Akito is like, are you gonna say it back? Because she's like, I love you, and he's like, he says, I love you, say it back. And she's like, I've been saying this for 26 episodes. How have you not heard this? I think that's neat. I love it. It's cute.
There's one element in it which I would criticize. It's brief. It's barely noticeable. I think it's possibly implied that as they're falling out, Akito hits her.
Yeah.
Not like super, super seriously, but obviously, you shouldn't hit people. And you can see why someone rapidly hammering out an anime script in the 1990s, giving this as generous a reading as possible, might have put that in. But I don't think it's really defensible. So I would file that in the column of the show's demerits, but it is a very good scene. It's very funny. I mean, the fact that I have a criticism of it would be bad faith for me to suggest that it's not a very well crafted scene, because it is.
It's a good culmination of what they're doing. Some might say it's a great way to end the series that nothing else
exactly. That's what I was going to say. Is it's a great cap. I like that it's comedic, but also important that the entire fleet has to listen to this, right? Because
we all have been waiting for him to choose somebody so we can stop doing these bits.
Yes,
I think also in a way, it's worth saying, if anyone has lasted this long without having seen the show, some of the science fiction stuff and some of the plots are not going to be wrapped up.
If
you watch the show,
this does not want to tell you everything.
The war is going to carry on at the end and so forth. And I'm not sure I dislike that in terms of...
I don't dislike it. I like it.
It would be weird. It would be weird in some ways for the war to... Like, one of the implicit messages of the show, not the main one, is possibly that wars are very hard to end. And which isn't to say you shouldn't try. It's not to say you shouldn't try if circumstances are correct, but and the science fictional stuff, again, I don't think it's a science fiction like high concept show in the way that some are. So it's not going to give you like exact answers to all the weird things it raises. And actually, I think I agree that makes this the right way to end what the show is doing. Definitely. Yeah.
Any other scenes, anything else? Like this is, I want us to talk about some of the crap we liked instead of just talking above it, before we kind of wrap up on our discussion. You all saw the chairman reveal coming. That wasn't, I feel like nobody's I feel like the fact that everybody on the crew is also like, yeah, we all knew, is one of the funniest meta things of like, yeah, if anybody was listening to this, which we're all mecha nerds, we knew this was coming.
Oh, I was just gonna say one moment I found really interesting. I'm not really sure how it places in what has come of our general theory on the show, but the way Munetake dies in this show really struck me as possibly the most grim the show ever gets. Where
again, he's trying to play a role. Interestingly,
yes, he's trying to play a role. He's trying desperately to play a role. And he just kind of has this mental break, and he steals an experimental Aestivalis, and he has this like it's like disturbing, this like delusion of the guy he murdered like encouraging him to blow himself up for no reason, basically. The way that the show, because you hate Munetake, like he's so insufferable through the whole run, but then somehow at the end you're like, that was fucked up. I don't know that I would like want that to happen to anyone ever.
Well, in a way, you could go ahead, Alice.
I think it's really interesting because like we have basically two Admiral characters. The first one who gets killed off and just comes back, and it's like he's more of like hitting the vibes of this show, and it feels like this guy is just like very out of place. He is General Revel from Gundam. He is a warmonger. He is like, we have to be doing the white base shit or the nerve shit. And then, it's such a good way for him to go.
I also, just while we're on the subject of him, there's in the same episode, there's a moment where he's looking at like a photograph of him and his dad that implies that his awful haircut is like genetic because his dad has the exact.
And I could be wrong. I think that shot is playing on the shot of Noriko with her dad in Gunbuster.
Wow.
I think.
Exactly. It looks like the exact same shot. It's so funny.
Which is very funny in various ways. Yeah. And I agree with you. And possibly it's something to file with the more laudable kind of humanism in the show that ultimately it thinks that even the really horrible people have some value. Not to say that they should be allowed to do what they want, but like you should maybe pause before rejoicing at the death of someone like like him. It is a really interesting. I think I kind of agree with you. It is one of the weirder and more unsettling moments in a show of surprising tensions and contrasts.
Yes.
I was going to mention, this is not weird or unsettling, it's just very funny. I was going to mention there's a brief musical sequence in the Kursk episode, I think episode 11, where the running gag is particularly good and it would collapse if anyone mentioned it. And they quite rightly no one mentions. I won't say what the running gag inside the musical sequence is, but, and that's directly comedy involving the Aestivalises. So it's also mechanical giant robot comedy, which is
also like, I love this is how we're doing the team building because like they're a squad. Like it's really weird. They're a weird squad, but they're a squad. It's really cool. But also our three girlies in that same episode run out of bullets in their Aestivalis and batteries, and they have to dismount. And they're literally like, guess we have to steal a tank now. And they're just piloting a tank, and she like uses an anti-tank mine, and I'm like, hell yeah. Get those German invaders. Let's go.
Well,
we're doing the Battle of Kursk again.
One other thing I would perhaps mention while we're talking about things that stuck out to us is actually the first episode is very well done. In particular, it's not the very best anime first episode that I would point to, but it's like a strong, well-made. Like if you haven't seen the show, and even if you're not going to watch the show, I would at least consider sampling the first episode just to see how much is packed into it.
It sets itself up so quick, lightning speed.
There are things in the first episode I don't like, but like it really rapidly conveys everything it needs to. The mechanical action is really good. And the way the show's structured, the head scriptwriter, I don't think there's really a serious composition credit in the way that many anime have an overall writing credit. Aikawa Show wrote many more episodes than anyone else,
but not
and seems to be the dominant script voice. But one of the reasons the show varies around so much is they do have these different writers. Yeah. So Aikawa Show, he wrote the first, I think, 3 episodes and the last 2, and then 10 of the others. But the first 3 are an interestingly really coherent script package, as are the last 2. And the rest of the show kind of wanders all over the map. And it kind of intentionally, as we said, it has this slightly Star Trek The Next Generation mode for a while, where it's like, well, let's just have single episode concepts and do them and drop bits and pieces of the larger plot. So I guess those would be other things I would point to.
Yeah. Also, the opening song owns all of the music this music is so
good.
Showa era bangers. You like Macross music, you're gonna love Nadesico music. Brian, any other little freaks? Do we need it?
I think Nadesico is actually Heisei era. I think it's 1989. But sorry, I'm a horrible
I think you're right, actually. Yeah.
The Geki Gangar music is Showa era.
Showa. Yeah, that's Showa.
And some of the other pieces are kind of hooking into And because the first episode, thinking of roles, the first episode's title is, and literally it means something like "Let's be manly," and the word "manly" in quotation marks. Every episode, the title it has a word or more in quotation marks, and the English the standard translation translates the English. Gives the English title of the first episode as to go, quote, like a man, end quotation. So speaking of roles and playing them, and Akito unheroically being forced into the robot.
Yes.
Right. Let women into Mecha.
I'm just scrolling through my notes looking for one I typed in all caps, and one of them is a really funny gag from the episode where Eureka has to give all those funerals. And it's Ruri and Eureka going through all of the different like religious requests, and one of them is a guy who's just straight up a vampire who wants to be staked while sucking blood at the same time. It's so fucking.
You need a beautiful young woman for that. I guess that's you, Captain. Very funny, very funny. We also need to talk about It's the Year in the Shell. We've got the digital library episode as well when they go into the computer. I love the little chibi models, very cute. It's a cute little like visual thing. Love when you go into a computer and it's adorable.
Well, and I love that it's just to like talk to the mecha of it all real quick. Like there's a way in which it's kind of implicit that Ruri has to craft a little chibi mech that Akito then pilots to and then what he ends up doing with it is pruning a tree. And I think that all of that stuff wraps into a really, really amazing understanding of like the mecha genre of this era, which is like all of the ways in which people have started to explore like the different stuff you can do that isn't just superhero stuff. You know what I mean?
And in a way, the Akito pruning the tree inside the computer is a very small foretaste of Turn A Gundam and things like the Turn A, turning itself into a bridge and being used to wash laundry and transport cows and so forth. And like making those things major plot aspirations of an episode.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. I see what you mean there.
Well, that's all interesting, and everything we did on the Nadesico is interesting, but we got to do something. We got to rate these goddamn mechs. So, Thaliarchus, this is your first time on the main line, so what we do is, and you might know this, we go through and we rate these medias based entirely on the mechs. So we aren't judging the story, we aren't judging Eureka's bits, we aren't judging the swimsuits like a contest. No, we are looking at the mechs, how the story informs them, their pilots, if they're cool or not, and it's all, and this is very important, not objective. This is your taste. This is going to be our official stance. We'll grab Nico's scores after this, but for now, we're going to go around the horn here, and we're going to start alphabetically with Brian. Brian, we have the Aestivalis. I've thrown all the different frames in here. We also have the Jovian mechs, as well as Geki Gengar. I didn't grab pictures of those, sorry guys. You need to know what was in the show that we watched. I'm also counting the Nadesico, because it is being piloted, it does transform, I think it is a mech, but that's me. You don't have to count it. So Brian, how do you rate the goddamn mechs?
I think that, so like one of the things I like to fold into my ratings is like the different ways that the narrative is going to play with mechs as spaces, mechs as different things that you can play with in terms of like how can they express things that is going on with the characters that isn't just like knocking beam sabers together or shooting missiles at each other, which like the mecha slapstick comedy in this always hits. It's always really, really fun. I love the episode we were talking about that's kind of a parody on the Cold Equation, where they have to like just basically gradually jettison all of the limbs off the mech in order to get back to the Nadesico.
Yep.
That's a really fun one. One of the things that kind of blew my mind a little bit was when they open the Jovian mech for the first time, and it's like playing constant Geki Gengar theme music, and there's like a comic in there and an action figure in there, and it's like almost as if it's like, is this a gift to like, because we still don't know that Jovians are humans. Is this like their weird understanding of like what it means to like open a thing and get communication or whatever? So like that moment was really, really cool. However, I basically don't love any of the actual mechanical design. I don't think any of it looks that cool. The unmanned Jovian stuff is the coolest looking stuff. Alice, the stag beetle ladybug thing you pointed out, from the beach episode. That one is probably my favorite mechanical thing in the show, and that's just because it has infinite missiles and its like entire back like arthropod thing just constantly shoots missiles. I think most of the Nadesico looks amazing. I just don't really count it because it's a carrier to me. Everything else is kind of a meh. So this is a 6 for me, and I fluctuated on this so much. It's been a 7 and an 8 and a 5. So I'm gonna land in the middle and say it's a 6. It's not equally good as it is bad. It's just I wish it was prettier in some ways. Animation wise, it's brilliant. By the way, just like design wise, I just didn't love it. Yeah,
A++ hand drawn.
I think there's a lot of really good design work. The animation is relatively limited. There are some bravura sequences which are very well done, but you know, that's a lot of TV anime is like that, and it's broadly in that strike there. And there's a couple of episodes where you can see the production struggle a little bit, but again,
there is a budget for every frame.
Yeah,
you gotta cut where you can. All right, Thaliarchus, what about you?
So what I would say is, I'd agree with Brian that this is not a show that's outstanding for its mechanical design specifically. If I was looking at the individual frames, I would say, like a lot of the Aestivalis frames, I would say are like a 7 out of 10 in that they're good. They're more than serviceable. They're good fun designs. It's good to see them in action. But they're not like super outstanding. I think I'd give the aerial Aestivalis frame an 8 out of 10. I don't even know if I necessarily like what it looks like, but it's a really strong statement. I love those. Like I love the ambition of those massive spikes coming off the legs and so forth.
Does not transform into a plane, just looks like that.
The lunar frame is like weirdly proportioned, and I'm actually kind of again sympathetic to that as like a strong statement, and would probably give it an 8 rather than a 7. The Nadesico, which we might perhaps treat as something screening out of competition, metaphorically speaking. It's not a giant robot, but if it was one, then you know, I think a 9 or a 10. It is a really lovely design, and everything inside the Nadesico is also really thoughtfully designed and good fun to look at. So those would be my ratings.
If you had to give it an overall one.
Oh, overall, well, probably an 8. It's very competent and good. It's just not an outstanding example. Yeah,
totally. I also one mech that we didn't mention that I just wanted to bring up because I actually do really like these is the Delphinium.
Ooh,
those white ones that kind of I don't think they have legs.
They have rocket boosters, don't they? Yeah. But the Earth Alliance uses them as part of its defense forces. Yes,
they evoke the mass-produced Avas a little bit in that they tend to swarm and they tend to be a little bit more like intimate. I wanted to point that doesn't change my rating. I just liked those.
Really mid UC kind of design, which I like. Alice, what about your score? Thanks for asking, Alice. Here's the thing. We know I love a standing man emoji. You know what I also love? When everybody's unit is colored in a specific way and slightly different from everybody else's. I know who's in each one of these mechs, and yet they look just normal enough. I love that the story it doesn't even bend over backwards to explain why they're different. They're all just freaks who make different mechs, and they're a civilian group. They can just do that. I think when we start to see the mass-produce Aestivalis, it kind of takes away from the energy that the Nadesico has. I like the Jovian things. I really like when Mecha takes what I would call a fantastical design like Super Robo and puts it in the same space as like a Macross, like a Gundam. Because it's like, well, yeah, in the same universe where the 08th MS team exists, you could also design a mech that looks like Geiki Gengar. Like, you could do that. Nothing's saying you... Like, when you look at early Gundam, right? They were making Zeon suits that were just, like, cool designs, but they were still kind of consistent with it. They were all kind of in this realm. But, like, why not just throw in a Super Robo and give it Flaming Fist and shit? Like, what is really the difference between an Aestivalis that has weird knee shin guards and is painted blue and yellow and a Geiki Gengar 3? Like, yeah, there is a difference, and like, you can pull that out, but at the end of the day, they're both mechas. And I like that the show does things with that. I like that some of the mechs combine. Love when a mech combines. I really enjoy when, specifically, it is that one scene when they're on a team building exercise and it's a musical element and it's just so like I felt Price of Smiles again in my heart. Which no one should ever evoke, but it did make me say, I love this. I do have to knock it because I think a lot of the Jovian stuff is just generic robot in a way that I really wanted them to explore more. And the Aestivalis, like, never really get to show off mech on mech combat in a way that I enjoy. So I'm gonna only have to give it a 9 out of 10. But I love this show. Very my bullshit. Love it. Yeah. You can't put that many female pilots in cute designed mechs and I don't rank it highly. I think of the extras from Bang Bravern that they just pick up randomly in Tokyo and they're just like, I'm in a purple one, I'm in a pink one, and I'm like, hell yeah. So that's gonna be our rankings. We will drop in right here Nico's rating.
I have no choice but to give these mechs a 10 out of 10. I don't know that my score matters because I wasn't able to put in the time and the hours, but there it is. This was extremely formative for me. I deeply enjoyed during the clip show that they literally just covered all of the Aestivalises. I love the name Aestivalis, but they also covered like a bunch of the Jovian tech. And I love the dynamic in the show between the Aestivalises and the Nadesico and the Jovian forces and how the direct interplay of combat, the fighting between them constantly forces innovation, especially given the time dilation things in effect and like the way that can mess with how you can innovate and how you can change your technology in response to an enemy. I love the throwback stuff in the Russian abandoned industrial zone where they had tank fighting. I'm sure Alice will have something very girls und Panzer coded to say about all of that. I think it's a banger, and I need an Aestivalis kit, both for me and for the 11-year-old me who didn't know that I was going to get really into Gunpla and become that pervert tech guy. And I think also his wife and Miss Haume and pretty much all of the extremely milfed women in this show should call me.
All right, with that, we have our scores, and we're going to head into the break, and when we come back, we're going to play a little game.
Hey guys, Alice here. Thanks for listening to On the Shoulders of Giants. We're really happy you're here, but if you know anybody who might be interested, we'd love if you share our work with them. If you are enjoying what we're doing, maybe send us a message, or what would really help us out is if you leave a review online. Really, a lot of the algorithms will push people down if they don't have reviews, so it really helps if you just go and write something on the internet. Heck, we might even read one on the podcast if it's really nice and makes our hearts go doki doki. So if you could do that, maybe do it, and thanks again for listening. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back from the break. It's time for a game. The name of this game is You're the Next Captain of the Podcast.
Okay.
In episode 19 of Martian Successor Nadesico, they have a talent/swimsuit contest to decide the new captain of the Nadesico. Our captain, Eureka, doesn't know that she is up for replacement, but we, as the listeners, do. So I thought, we've been around some time, and Alice has been captaining this podcast for a while. Maybe we should put it out there, have a contest, see who should be the next captain of the podcast. So what I've done is I've gone through our past episodes. I have, from selected ones, pulled out one of the many waifus, and we are going to go through them and rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, much like they do in this. I have locked you two into a chair that you are sitting next to each other with little folding tables locking you in, much like happened in the episode. Sorry, you can't go anywhere. Now, I didn't do everything we've done. Obviously, we can't do TTRPGs, and I didn't want to do certain ones that I feel we're a little too close to. Sorry, Stories from Seoul, we are not bringing Best Girl in. Also, there's no art of her in a bikini. But, so, what I'm going to go through is we're going to go through this, and you're going to rate this. Now, this wouldn't be a game if there weren't stakes, right? So, whoever we vote will be the honorary captain of the OSG podcast. I have also ranked these myself. And as Brian is not helming this one, I am the arbiter of truth for these waifu ratings.
Wow, you usurped.
So, whichever one of you gets closer, depending on how far away you are, you'll get a different level of points. And I will calculate which one of you has the closest taste to mine. Now, I want you to vote for them based on their talents and their swimsuits. I want to be very clear about that. We'll have a clean fight out here, okay?
Okay.
So, with that, let's get into it and find out who is the next captain of the podcast. For round 1, we have from our first episode, Hitomi Kanzaki from Escaflowne. Her special skill is running. She's the captain of the track team.
Okay.
Here is her swimsuit.
Oh, God. Is this going to be like this?
Is this all official art, by the way?
Yes. I painstakingly went for official art. Don't worry.
I'm glad the archival work has been done.
This is so important.
Thank you.
Is she wearing a watch?
In this picture, no, she is not.
Okay.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, Brian.
I love Hitomi. I think she's a great character. I don't think I don't find her to be particularly talented, and the fact that she's not wearing a watch with the swimsuit is pretty diabolical. So, are we rating this out of 10? What's going on?
1 to 10, like you're...
Okay, 1.
Yep, perfect. Okay. I feel like, okay, I'm going to tell you and we'll drop it in this podcast. We're going to get Nico to record her scores here, and I'm going to frame it to her in a much different way so that she has to give high numbers, and it's going to look really weird.
And then I didn't.
Anyway, Thaliarchus, what about you?
Considered in the abstract.
Yes.
As I find the idea of being attracted to Hitomi quite weird, but considered in the abstract, I think running is a respectable talent. So, I 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me invite you on this podcast so I could do this to you.
The pain in his voice.
All right. We're heading into round 2.
Okay.
Of our contest. Character 2. From our second episode of the podcast, Pat Lieber 2, Shinobu Nagumo. Her special skill is police work. She is one of the best cops in the biz. Now, here's an interesting thing. There is no official art. So this is her swimsuit, her full work uniform. This is how she shows up. She is not here to be objectified. What, Brian, do you rate Shinobu?
So I have to average it out, right? Because she's a cop, so I find that to be a deplorable talent, and so I'm going to give that like a 2. But the swimsuit is a 10, so I'm going to give this like a, what's meeting in the middle? Like a 6? Yeah.
6.5. You can round up.
7. We'll give it a 7.
Thaliarchus, what about you?
Well, I'm leaving aside...
She's one of the good
leaving
ones.
aside questions of whether one endorses police work, etc., etc. I think I have to agree with Brian. Actually, I think 7 is about right. I think if we're thinking about talent and the police uniform in Pat Lieber is
iconic.
It's
exactly.
Good.
Yeah.
More safety colors in our mecha. I realized I didn't give my score last time. By the way, for Hitomi, that's got to be an 8 for me. I just love a distressed woman who is just like running from her problems. A++. So Thal got that point. Well, those points. For our girl, for Shinobu, 10 out of 10 for me.
It's funny that
love a problematic cop.
It's funny that the mechanics of the game actually boil down to guess Alice's tastes. But yeah, I mean, carry on. This is not a criticism.
I guess my thought is, do either of you really want to win this game? Does anyone
No,
want to
I don't want to win this game. I'm shooting from the hip and being honest with my heart. I don't care what Alice thinks.
By the way, it's only getting worse. Don't worry. So, our next run, round 3, from our Gunbuster episode is Noriko Takaya, our pro tag. Now, the good news here is her main outfit is a gym outfit, which I can say is a swimsuit. Now, this one's a bit of a stretch because I was Googling for swimsuits, which is problematic, and this model came up, and I was like, well, it's gotta be this picture. And all of these are on the website, so you can all feel the pain. Her special skill is rhythmic gymnastics. She does the ribbon work. She does the dancing. We've seen her moves.
That's true.
She is out there doing the floor work, right?
Yeah.
All right, Brian, what do you give her?
Again, abstracted because these are high schoolers.
Yep. Fully abstracted.
I know what everyone thinks about the Gunbuster outfits, and I agree with I agree. The composition of them, the concept of them, I just really like the way they look, just like as, again, abstracted. So I would say this is an 8.
Yeah, I feel like this has to be so abstracted because of the content we're talking about. I feel like we've been very clear on this podcast.
If I were to pretend that these are adults, I would unabashedly give it an 8.
I'm more going.
So,
listeners can't. Yeah.
Listeners can't see this, but we're looking at a model of an anime figure, which is in that relatively interesting and narrow category of anime figures, which are safe for work, but which one wouldn't want to display.
Yes, you would hide this if anybody saw this. You would say, it's like on paper, this is okay. I don't want anyone seeing that I own it.
Fine. If I was, I would probably give a 7. I mean, I think what we're really talking about here is the crew at Gainax. I forget who's responsible for the designing the costumes and character designs in Gunbuster, but these people understood how you can design a gym uniform.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really good design, open to plenty of criticism, but it's well made.
Yeah.
It's iconic. It evokes something and it ties in with the school uniforms and the mechs in a cool way. But yeah, Gainax can do some good things. Round 4. This one was hard for me.
Wait, what was your rating of Noriko?
Oh, of Noriko? She's a 4 for me.
Oh,
like, I like the swimsuit design, but like, I think the talent kind of killed her on it for me. Like, she is not a good pilot.
No.
And not a good gymnast.
You don't see what the coach sees in her.
I don't.
Yeah.
Round 4, from a little show called The Price of Smiles.
Great.
Stella shining, because I ain't doing the princess. We are doing Stella, the other protagonist. Now, interesting enough, not a swimsuit in the show, but she does go to a river and bathe while in her skivvies, which I would count as military swimsuits. Her special skill is fishing. She's always out there fishing.
Is that true? I don't remember
this off of her holding the orb with the fish in it and being like really obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I was stretching for some of these.
Sure,
I was like, what would her skill be that isn't just piloting a mech, right? Like,
I could see her fishing.
She seems like a fisher, right? Anyway, here's her swimsuit. It's whatever. It's
so
military skivvies. Yeah. Please enjoy the sample art on top of this because I was digging. Brian, there's like no, I want to be clear. There's like no fan art of this show. It was such a nothing thing. That's it. Okay. Brian.
We've given it more attention than it ever earned.
I'm the one stand.
And in that light, I'm going to give this a 1.
She showed up. Thaliarchus, what about you? She's fishing and she didn't even wear a swimsuit.
Yeah, I know. I think I've only seen one episode of The Price of Smiles, so you've certainly lapped me on that one.
Darn.
It's hard, and I with apologies to listeners who love to do it. It's hard to respect fishing.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
And I know it's not a hobby that causes any problems really, but something about it. Anyway, I think a 3 from me.
I love fishing minigames. I hate fishing.
Well, fishing minigames is a different. I've played games in which you shoot people, but I don't love shooting people in real life.
You both tied on this one because I gave her a 2.
There you go. Equidistant.
All right. Okay. I'm so excited for this one. Now, this would be an Alice game if we didn't get like weird with it, which we haven't at this point yet. So in round 5, we're getting into it. Promare is a great movie that we watched, and our contestant from this is Leo Focia. Leo's skill is burning passion. Literally, that's the skill. It's from the show, and I found an artist who worked on the show who did these cute little sketches of Leo in this little outfit, and I'm obsessed with it. I saw it and I was like, oh my god, what a cutie patootie. I love it. It has that like panty and stocking vibe. A++. All right, Brian, how did Leo do?
10.
Thaliarchus?
And I think this is being flattered by the artist. This is a really nice. It's a quick sketch, but it's a really nice sketch. But I give it an 8. Like it's a really neat swimsuit
again. I gave it a 9.
There you go.
I was like, you know what? I love Leo's
The
skill.
pumps really puts it over the edge.
It's very Leo. it's so gender. Now, despite this being an Alice game, I have to pay homage to the OSG canon, which means we have to have 3D models in this contest. Round 6, Robot Jocks. It's gotta be Athena. Her skill is rock climbing. She doesn't fall down any metal gymnasiums that are shaking and breaks anything. She's actually good at it. Now, also not a swimsuit, but I'm counting her athletic wear from the first episode. From that first fight scene. Brian, what do you give Athena?
10. She's an adult. This outfit fucking rules. Yeah.
Thaliarchus, what about you?
I don't love the US flag theming, if that's what it is. Not that I dislike the US
God,
flag.
What do they call
it's
it,
just
the capitalist or something?
Let me say this. I do dislike the US flag, and I think the symbol there is really funny because I think it seems to be conflating the US flag with the imperial symbol from Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm sympathetic. I think it's good. Yeah.
I give her a 4. 3D women. Ew.
Real women. 3D women. She's a real woman.
3D
what is
women,
3D women?
Not on my watch. 2.5D is the closest I'll get. All right.
The official OSG stance is that real women are 3D and also are not attractive.
Sometimes. Round 7. We had to do it. We have to put somebody from Metal Gear Solid on here.
Yeah,
now I know
I've been waiting.
Who you think I'm going to put on there, but it's not them. Coming up to the front, we have the explainer herself, Dr. Naomi Hunter.
I thought it was going to be her.
Oh, not quiet? The one in the literal
I guess
underwear?
that's fair, yeah.
Her special skill is
Nanomachines, son.
That's what she does, nanomachines. And I know what you're saying. There was never any official art of her in a bikini. There was.
Of course there was.
A Metal Gear Online, the only official Dr. Naomi Hunter swimsuit. So here's that one in all of its.
I just want to say, if you
glory.
really thought that nobody on any Metal Gear staff ever made a model of Dr. Naomi Hunter in a bikini, you are naive and foolish.
Usually it's just underwear. I had to find one specifically. That wasn't. I guess this is technically
also,
not
this
underwear.
looks nothing like her either.
Metal Gear Online was nothing. Brian, how'd Dr. Hunter do?
I gotta say, okay, this is a very basic bikini, first of all, so it's like boring in a way. Second, these absolute butcher knife bangs she's rocking is unexcusable. This is a 1.
The nanomachines don't lift it up any?
No.
Okay. Right. Thaliarchus, what about you?
I don't like the way this is shot. The way you compose the so I mean that's unfortunate for Dr. Hunter. But I think I have to agree with Brian. I think this is just a bit of a write-off, really. A bit like Metal Gear Online.
Anyway, I gave her a 7. I'm problematic. More than the real woman. Okay. Round 8. Hey, we got to talk about it. Synduality Noir.
Yeah.
So Synduality Noir, actually a good show, actually pretty goated. This, like many mecha anime, has a full swimsuit episode, so I had my run-of-the-mill for this one. I went with Ellie. Her skill, because we haven't had one yet, is Childhood Friend. AO crystal harvesting. No, her special skill is she's your childhood friend. And this is her swimsuit.
Sorry, which one is Elle?
She's the one who's just drowned and is laying on the ground dying while no one does anything.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
now
it
all came back to me so quickly as soon as you said that. Okay.
All right, Brian, what do you give childhood friend Elle?
I think Elle is a bad friend. And
terrible.
But I actually think the swimsuit's kind of cute. I like the weird little lacy thing some of them do. That like little skirt thing. Yeah. It's okay. I'll say this is a 5.
Thaliarchus?
And I agree with Brian that compared to many of the swimsuits we've looked at so far, this one was clearly designed by someone who was thinking about designing a swimsuit, which is a plus. I would be interested. There are other people I would name if asked to name someone as a notable childhood friend in a mecha context. So I'm going to say I just don't value the talent as much. So it's a 3 from me, I think.
when the whole plot with her childhood friendship is just like waved away in one episode, and you're like, oh, wasn't that deep, huh?
Now
Round
the
9.
blonde one, that appears to be a swimsuit. And that swimsuit is a statement. That is a 10 of a swimsuit. That thing is
Everyone
crazy.
on the beach is going to turn their heads when they see that.
Almost like she's a pop idol who is about to sing a song on a concert stage.
Oh, is this the Love Live episode? Okay.
This is the Love Live episode.
Okay.
That's the Love Live girl. Yeah. Round 9 brings us back to, we've done too much of this show. This was in our 20s. Metallic Rouge. So this one obviously is going to be Rouge, Red Star, not her friend Naomi. Her skill is superior strength. She's actually just a super powerful robot. She's the one on the right. This is her official canon swimsuit. All right, Brian, what do you give her? Oh, did I give my Ellie? My Ellie was also a 5. You guys tied on that one. She's such a middle of the road character.
Who's the other one? Who's the friend here? What's her name? Naomi. She has a way better swimsuit, but I'm on record as loving Rouge as a character and her talent being. If we say that her talent is also being incredibly stupid, then I think it's an 8.
I feel like when she went up to demonstrate superior strength, she like ripped something out of the wall that was critical. Because we're obviously on the Nadesico for this, right?
Yeah.
And so she ripped something out and like and we had to like clean up after it. So I feel like it's implied that she's very stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. But the swimsuit sucks. So what did I say? I think a 6.
Right. Thaliarchus?
I think being a robot is indisputably an excellent talent.
Never not great.
Right. But like Brian, I very much agree. This is really not a great exercise in the art of designing swimsuits.
Looks like workout clothes.
Yeah. So I think a 4.
I gave her an 8 because I love an idiot. I also love a sporty spice kind of look. So round 10. This one's for Brian. Our contestant for this one is from a little thing called Macross Plus. It's your girl, Sharon Apple. Her skill is singing. Technically, none of her suits are swimsuits.
but they also all are.
I'm making the argument they're all swimsuits. Let's be honest here. And if she wanted to, she could just be wearing a swimsuit. So Brian, what do you give Sharon Apple?
She's a 10. I fucking love Sharon Apple, dude.
It's so good. Thaliarchus, what about you? Our virtual idol.
I mean, Sharon Apple's fashion is impeccable.
Yeah.
And she's undeniably extremely talented. So I think a 10 as well. I'm sorry to be boring and just agree, but I don't know really what else can you say. I mean,
you'll never guess what I gave Sharon Apple. It's a 10 out of 10. She's an adult robot lady. Anyway,
she's a
round
cube.
11. I know it seems like we are jumping from episode 20 to the year in Shell. I don't want to undersell the fact that before this recent run of anime we've been doing, we were deep in books and TTRPGs and podcasts. So it's like we jumped to Ghost in the Shell. So for round 11, it's the Major from Ghost in the Shell. Her skill is counter hacking and espionage, and her swimsuit is the only canonical swimsuit I care about. That's right, the scuba suit from the movie.
Yeah.
That's what she flops out in, complete with the flippers. She's like,
yep.
Brian, what do you give the Major?
I mean, okay, so the talent, it is proven over and over again. No one ever in the entire universe is better than Kusanagi at anything Kusanagi wants to do. Second, this fucking outfit rules so hard. So it's a 10.
Thaliarchus?
Undeniably, very, very talented officer. And she's practicing sensible, practical diving safety. I'm less wowed by the suit, but it's at least an 8. At least an 8. Yeah.
I think it's bold to go with this one when she has a perfectly prosthetic body that would look good in anything, and she's like, I'm coming out in that. So we had to include one Gundam person, and unfortunately, we've only done 3 Gundam things on here. Gundam Evolution has no characters. Gundam 0080, that recording's not out there. Wait, there's one other Gundam though. Oh, Gundam G-Savior. Unfortunately, there are no official pictures of those characters except for the ones in the wetsuit, and I already did that joke. So we've got to do Endless Waltz. Sorry. It's Relina Peacecraft for round 12. Her special skill is diplomacy.
Okay.
I could only find this official art of the 4 main girls in swimsuits. Sorry.
I just want to say it's a crime that you discounted G-Savior because Cynthia spends the entire movie in a bathing suit. Or I guess it's a wetsuit,
really?
but like, come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Edit on the pod.
No. We can do this one because I do want to say I think that Relina's okay at her talent. I think not amazing. And unfortunately, once again, she is absolutely shown up by Dorothy, who both has a better swimsuit and super knows she has a better swimsuit in this photo. So,
real.
It's a 5 for me.
I'm not sold on the stripes, and I think the high leg thing isn't really working. So I think a 4.
Yeah,
that's real. Also, bad at diplomacy. We can't say it enough.
Why does war keep happening if she's good at it? I mean...
Interesting. Weird, Relina. I thought you got rid of weapons, and yet this small child has an army of soldiers? Weird. Interesting. All right. I had to throw this in here because this was meant to be off the rails intentionally. Round 13. Hey, there's no art of Mecha Godzilla in a swimsuit. So I just put Godzilla in here. Godzilla's skill is causing Japanese bureaucracy. And the swimsuit, I saw this like a couple weeks ago. Mangaloo Cosplay does swimsuit variants of cosplay, and they did a Godzilla that's fucking awesome. So I just wanted to throw that in here. That's this whole round.
Okay. I'm vitriolically disappointed that I don't get to see Godzilla in a bikini. This is a human in a Godzilla bikini, which is okay, but not as good.
I feel like this is a non-scoring round.
Oh, it is? Okay, cool. Then
I just wanted to put
say.
This in here as a bit. I think we were excited to see Mecha Godzilla in a bikini, and then like a woman in cosplay came out, and we were like, "Boo! I want Godzilla in a bikini." I just wanted to put that in here, and also so I had an excuse to put it on our website. All right, round 14. You know, I had to do something specifically for Brian. So
I thought it was Leo. Oh no!
Oh, it's not just Leo. For round 14, we're going to a little show called Bang Bravern! Our contestant is Lewis Smith, whose special skill is boxing. This is his official swimsuit from official promo material. I know what you're saying. Is that an 8-pack? It is.
It is an 8-pack. What did you say Lewis Smith's talent is?
Boxing. Is
boxing?
What I'm going to pin it on. Yeah, I think that's his talent in the show.
If you had said Gunpla, I probably would have rated this higher.
Real.
And I don't like a Speedo, and Lewis is really not my type, so I'm going to give this a 3.
Get that. Thaliarchus, how'd Lewis do?
I mean, I perhaps object less to Speedos, and this one is at least using the space, like it's not just blank color, which can be quite boring.
Yeah.
So I think a 5 from me, and I kind of agree that like if model making rather than boxing was the talent, more might be said, but
that's good. I gave a 7. Passion does a lot for me in these competitions, you know, and I just felt like he was serving.
He's always serving. This cannot be argued.
Always serving. All right, we're almost getting through the entire oeuvre of what we have as we hit our episode 50, Giant Robo, and you know it's got to be Genri from Giant Robo with her official swimsuit outfit, which is canon. Her skill is teleportation.
Yeah.
And yes, she did show up with the Giant Robo surfboard that is canon to this outfit.
The Giant Robo surfboard fucking rules. I think a black bikini is boring. I love Genri though, so I'm gonna balance it out with a 7.
That's good. Thaliarchus, what about you?
I mean, yes, it's not the most inventive thing in the world, but it has the like rose thing.
It does. I was just looking at that
in the middle of the top and the side tie. I mean, I think an 8 from me.
I agree with that. For me, it was 10 out of 10. I love a simple cut.
Now, how loud do you think it is when she falls down the stairs in this outfit?
Fucking insane. Oh my god, Brian, we have another round. What would you call it?
A bonus round.
We're entering round 1578. It's your captain, Alice. I am competing in this competition as well.
Okay.
Your character is Alice from the On the Shoulders of Giants podcast. Her skill is inflicting mental damage on those around her. Now, I'm not going to show you a picture of myself in a bikini, so instead I Googled Alice anime swimsuit figure. And there is there's a Sword Art Online spinoff called Alicization.
Oh,
there's a character named Alice. So I found the cheapest model of Alice I could find, and I want you to use this as the metaphor for me. So this is my swimsuit for this. I found a $20 model. I thought she was holding French fries at first.
Is she not?
It's a bottle with 2 straws.
Okay.
But in your heart, no, I'm holding French fries. So, what score do you give Alice from On the Shoulders of Giants? And I'm watching you deeply.
The talent is a 10. I think I actually quite like the swimsuit. So I think I'll give it I'll give it an 8.
Thaliarchus, I'm going to make you do it.
It's a great concept for a swimsuit, but it's not terribly well rendered in this particular figure. Possibly this may relate to the price.
Maybe it might be why it's a $20 model.
Yeah,
I think she has a face.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere. I think a 7. I mean, I would rate it higher if the figure was a better figure.
You know, I would never do that. Okay, give me just 1 second to do quick math. Insert thank you music here. Oh, I didn't score myself. So that one's just,
that seems
the higher
fair.
you rated, the more points you get, by the way. Okay, at the end of this, actually, sorry, Thaliarchus, Brian won this one.
Whoa, really?
Brian, unironically, was
congratulations.
You were very close, Thaliarchus, by a matter of 4 points off.
Oh, that's not bad.
I can't remember the last time I won a game on this show.
And it's this one?
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to say to women?
I'm sorry, women.
Oh, I am getting a note here. Our contest that we were just hosting, it does look like Sharon Apple won, but she abdicated. So all of the second place people did rock, paper, scissors, and I am the captain of the podcast again. So
yeah.
Yay! I'm holding up a peace sign like Eureka.
This will be a great relief to the crew, and no doubt a great annoyance to Nurgle headquarters.
I just want to point out that Alice did a peace sign, but currently the way her camera is set up, we can't see the other arm. So it was equally valid or equally likely she was doing a Nixon.
I'm not a crook. Yeah. So that was the dumbest game I've ever made for this show. Did I have to go back to the episode to specifically find what round they called for Eureka in the show? I did. And that's the effort that I put in there.
That's the research.
Oh my god, we got a flash transmission, and it's from a former co-host and good friend of the pod, Nico.
Former co-host. Wow. We're ready?
Ready.
Yep.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Due to a catastrophic bosun jump, this message is reaching you from the past in the future, probably by an interval of about 2 weeks. This is Nico. I traveled to give Ghost their handful of dry pasta in person. Unfortunately, the bosun jump was catastrophic, and I contracted Martian plague. Okay, this metaphor is breaking down. Anyway. Martian Successor Nadesico is really important to me, so even though I'm having to miss the episode, I wanted to share my thoughts in the form of a letter that I could force my co-podcasters to insert into the episode.
Anything but actually be here for the record.
Martian Successor Nadesico is really funny for me because this is one of the most formative anime I ever watched, and it is real shadows on the wall of Plato's Cave hours because I hadn't watched anything that this show is parodying before I got very, very into it. rewatching has been really weird because now I think I have a much better idea of kind of what had been happening in the mecha space that led up to a parody show of this kind. Yeah, so like now I'm being rewarded by like silly little comments like, oh yeah, that battleship's here, the Yamato. No, it's the Nadesico, and like, you know, shit like that. I've been really enjoying it, but it is funny to me the extent to which I went into this show as a 11 to 12-year-old and knew absolutely fuck all about kind of the context that it existed in. It does make it really funny that the Earthlings and the Jovians bond over Geki Gengar, considering, you know, I chased this anime really hard as kind of a bonding thing with my dad. But yeah, so that was my context beforehand. Because I am sending this in as a letter in lieu of actually appearing on this episode that I was deeply looking forward to, I felt it was deeply important for me to ask some questions that the hosts could contemplate deeply and respond to.
Jesus Christ.
The first one I think is one we were all thinking up until episode 3, and then with the kind of return, we were thinking it once again. Does Guy Daigoji have T-Boy swag? Secondly, do we all agree that head scientist Ms. Versange and the president's secretary Ms. Wan should les out?
What the fuck?
And thirdly, how do we feel about the fact that Mr. Hori's first name is canonically Goat? Alright, love y'all. Stay safe from the plague. And don't do any man bosun jumps until we get some more shit figured out, okay? Bye!
Nico will literally record a 4-minute letter and die of Martian disease rather than show up to the podcast on time. Just want to get that out there.
Okay, I feel like maybe if you have COVID, a 4-minute message is a little more manageable than a 4-hour record.
Okay. Whatever.
I would have made it here.
I think the answer to all those questions is yes, right? Like pretty just even-handedly.
You know, I don't know about the T-boy swag. I mean, I get it in the like chosen gender euphoria kind of way, like, but I don't know if T-boy swag.
I think of him as, okay, so here's the narrative that popped in my head when she said that, right, is he is sitting down to watch Geki Gengar the same way you sat down to watch Ghost in the Shell and was like, oh, holy shit, this is my gender. No, Geki Gengar is not, he's not just a fan of Geki Gengar. Geki Gengar is his gender.
That, I get that. That makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
Thaliarchus, I have to ask, do you know what T-boy swag is?
I've been surreptitiously Googling it, so now I know what.
Nailed it. Okay, I just wanted to, okay. I feel like that's a good way to put it. His gender is Geki Gengar 3. I get that, yep. And it's very, like, traditional boy-coded, so T-boy swag. Can't believe that she forgot Arena's name, but Miss Versange and Miss Explainer and Arena do have that in the same way that Misato and the scientist and Eva have that, where it's like...
They do,
Yeah, you guys should just, like, quit men. You might be a lot happier if you just quit men, if we're being honest. I knew that she would be, like, swimming in the MILFs of this show, and just to hear it confirmed is making me very happy. Like, I can see why Nico loved this. Strong adult women. Any other thoughts on this sick boson jumping bozo?
I just hope she gets well soon. It's COVID's rough.
It's not fun. Yeah. It's not fun. All right. Well,
continuing the proud tradition of going to Europe and getting a disease.
Hey, wait, did I get a disease when I went last time?
I don't know, but I just mean like for humanity.
I think no, I might have come back sick. I feel like everybody comes back from the UK sick though. I think it's just like too many like brown foods, you know?
It's the damp, I think. I think it's the damp. Yeah.
It is so moist. It's so moist over there.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Can't do it. Well, thanks for that letter. Thanks for writing in, former co-host and listener of the podcast, Nico. Hope to see you and welcome you back as a co-host.
I guess it's better than former friend of the show, isn't it? I mean,
never a former. We don't have former friends. We just have friends we haven't met back up with yet, except for PMC after what he said about G-Quux. But that's this episode of On the Shoulders of Giants, where we discussed Martian Successor Nadesico. Any closing thoughts, you two?
Corey, watch the show.
I think I'd recommend at least trying this show to anyone who's at all curious about it. Of course, they may well not be listening by this point, given that we've really gone long on this one. But yeah. And if you enjoyed the show and you haven't thought about rewatching it, it does repay a rewatch. There's a lot in the show, a lot of incidental stuff, which so I'd recommend that too.
And I will say, like, there's so many running jokes and so many things. Like, even though we kind of really just got into it, there's so much going on in the show. It is running at full speed the whole time, and it is just fun. It's a good old school anime, 23-minute episodes where you just skip the first 2 minutes.
It's just a great time.
Recap. Perfect time. I also want to say, if you are an appreciator of anime women, they're just fun in this. Like, this is... I would call proto cute girls doing cute things, honestly. My final thought is there is a scene in which the 0G in the ship gets cut off and nobody tells Eureka, and she gets caught floating in 0G and is like, why didn't anybody tell me to put a seatbelt on? And then commits to being in 0G, and she's just sitting Seizawa style, holding a green teacup, floating.
She visibly becomes more comfortable as the episode progresses. So by the end of the episode,
making cold tactical calls while just being totally
And I do it for her. She's mecha protags of all time. I don't care about that other guy. She's the best. She's so good.
I love her. I really, really love Eureka.
Thanks for listening, pilots. Remember, you can reach out for advice from the team at our email, questions@osgpod.com, and non-pilots can send general questions or feedback to that same address. You can also catch up with us on social media, links in the description for updates and more. You can also find a link to our show Discord in the notes. Come check us out. Thaliarchus, people love you, they know you, but besides your normal posting, where can they find you? Actually, where can they find your posting?
Yeah. So the username is THALIARCHUS, and you can find me under that on Blue Sky for posting in general. I've been trying to post a bit more on Tumblr recently. I'm sure a dangerous sentence to utter. If you want to read my work, you can find me on itch.io. Cosmic Warlock in Bright is free, and you can read you can hear a great podcast about the first half of it earlier in OSG's run.
Is that part 2 someday?
I'm trying to stream on Twitch, not to get an audience, but because it's an interesting way to play Super Robot Wars. So you can find me under the same username on Twitch if you're curious about that.
I also want to say that you can tip for Cosmic Warlord Ken Bright, and it's a great print at home and tip a little bit. I think it's worth it to I have it on my shelf. It's fun.
You just released a spiritual sequel too, didn't you?
That's right, yeah, Spearhand Fairing, which is sort of set in the same setting many years before. And that you have to pay for that one, but it buys you like an audiobook version as well as the EPUB and the PDF. So a niche interest, but interesting to people in the niche.
All of that to say, all these links will be in the description, so you can check out Thaliarchus and what they're doing. Thaliarchus, thank you so much for coming to a mainline episode.
It's been a great pleasure, thank you.
I hope we can have you back for more of these fun little dives.
Well, I hope so, yes.
You've always been the crazed scientist professor of our genre, and it's very fun. Make sure, listeners, to check back in 2 weeks where we will be discussing the sequel to Extreme Meat Pucks Forever, Extreme Meat Pucks Forever, Bound by Ash. Until then, goodbye. I love you.
Bye.
Goodbye, I love you.